The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5,
4, 3, 2, 1.
Did it cut out? It sure did cut out.
It doesn't every time.
That's
good
so
evening.
weird. Hello.
How's everybody doing tonight? Thank you guys for being here. Those that are watching the live, those that will watch on the replay, really appreciate it. Tonight's live stream, we are diving into the heartbreaking case of Tracey Nix. She is a grandmother from Wauchula, Florida, who just recently faced trial for the tragic death of her 7-month-old granddaughter, Uriel. Shock. And so real quick, let me just give you a real fast overview. This devastating incident occurred on November 22nd of 22 when Uriel was left in a hot car seat for several hours. It was all afternoon, and it led to her tragic death. But shockingly, this was not the first tragedy that the family endured under Tracey Nix's care. So just 11 months earlier, on December 23rd, so just 2 days before Christmas in 2021, her 15-month-old grandson, Ezra, Shock, drowned in a pond on the family's property while Tracey was babysitting. So Tracey did not get any charges for the Ezra, who drowned in the family pond. No charges were brought forth on that. However, they did bring charges forth for the second grandchild, Uriel, that was left in the hot car seat. So Tracey faced charges of aggravated manslaughter of a child and neglect. And her trial actually began this month, and it just finished, I want to say, last week. It was a 2-day long trial.
Yes.
And it really captured national attention with emotional testimonies, especially from her daughter, Kayla Nix, who lost both of her children in less than 1 year. So tonight, we're going to go through the details of the case, mainly the court proceedings, and a lot of video clips from those. And I'd really like to hear your thoughts. So hopefully we have time, we can make time. And at the end of this, we can do a call-in segment where you guys can just call in and give us your thoughts. What do you think about the case? Do you think that Tracey Nix's punishment was deserved? Do you think she deserved to be punished at all? So those are the questions that I have for you guys. And did anybody watch the video that's in here now? Did anybody watch the video? Well, Tara did. Thanks, Tara.
I do my homework when she assigns it to me. I get
Tara
random text
has
messages.
choice.
Tara, watch this. All right, here we go.
Yes, I sent it to her. So in case you didn't, and for those that are on replay that have not seen it, I want to play that for you guys, just because it gives a really, I hope, a really good overview in a short amount of time for you guys and those that aren't aware of the case. I really think it needs awareness. You know, it's already been through the trial. She's already, she hasn't been sentenced yet. She will be here in a few months. But I think it's important for us to bring awareness to a few things in this case. So, yep, said she watched the entire trial. I did too, and it was sad. And I have some mixed emotions. I'm sure you guys know that I probably have mixed emotions on this as a grandmother myself, and losing a child, but mostly as a grandmother myself. So I'm going to play the video that I did for you guys the other night, just so that you would get an overview of the case before we did the live. So let me share that. And again, welcome to everybody coming in the chat. We really appreciate all of you guys being here. And as always, just be nice, be classy, keep your comments kind. If you disagree with somebody and you're having an issue, you can personally block them. So let's just be nice to everybody, please. So let's share this real quick. And
I can't. I literally can't. I have no idea. Talk to your dad if he's with your niece.
hopefully everybody can hear that.
Dad, it has her right now. My dad has her. Oh Lord, how old is your niece? This is really, really, really bad. Oh no.
A Florida grandmother whose actions led to the death of 2 of her grandchildren in less than a year. These heartbreaking events have left a family and an entire community asking really hard questions about responsibility, forgiveness, and justice. Before we dive into the tragic events, let's talk about Tracey Nix. Tracey is a retired school principal and a beloved grandmother living in Wauchula, Florida. To her family, she was known as someone who loved spending time with her grandchildren. At 65, she had a reputation as a kind and involved caretaker. But even those closest to her couldn't have predicted the series of events that would lead to the unimaginable. Tracey's daughter, Kayla Nix, described her as a doting grandmother who her family had trusted with the care of her children. Kayla even said, "There was never a moment we thought anything like this could happen." But as we know, trust can be shattered in the blink of an eye.
Sure.
All right. How would you describe your relationship with Tracey Nix?
We were co-workers in a lot of church activities involved with children. We worked together with Bible school. Tracey served as a principal for a couple of years, and I was one of the teachers, and Tracey did an amazing job. Then we worked together in children's choirs, which in order to prepare a musical to be presented to the whole church, we often went on a retreat so that the kids could spend time with recreation and practicing their music. And Tracey would prepare the devotions. Amazing work that she produced for those kids to do study while we were on a retreat. It happened multiple times.
You said that Tracey was the one doing the preparing.
Absolutely.
The retreat.
She did every bit of it.
And when you say retreat, how long?
A weekend.
A weekend.
Friday afternoon and come home Sunday afternoon.
So overnight.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Thank you. How did Tracey feel about Uri?
She loved her. I don't know what else to say. That's her grandmother. Of course, she loved her.
Pretty obvious.
Yes.
Okay. You'd seen her around Uri before.
Yes. She had had Uri with her at my home that day and taking care of her and watching her play on the floor. And it was obvious.
Very good. Thank you, ma'am.
The first tragedy struck in December 2021. Tracey was babysitting her 16-month-old grandson, Ezra, at her home in Wauchula. According to reports, Tracey had fallen asleep while Ezra was in her care. And during that time, Ezra wandered outside, managed to open several doors, and eventually made his way to a pond near the property. When Tracey woke up, she couldn't find Ezra. The family's worst fears were confirmed when they discovered him in the pond, and he had drowned. Law enforcement investigated, but no charges were filed in Ezra's death. While it was ruled a tragic accident, the incident obviously deeply affected the family. Kayla later said that while they were grieving Ezra's loss, they still believed that Tracey was capable of watching their children. But this would tragically prove not to be the case. Less than a year later, on November 1st of 2022, another tragedy struck. And this time it involved Tracey's 7-month-old granddaughter, Uriel. Shock. That day, Tracey had taken Uriel to lunch with friends. And after returning home, she parked her Lexus SUV in the yard and she went inside, completely forgetting that Uriel was still strapped in a car seat. The Florida sun was relentless that day, with temperatures soaring into the 90s. So for hours, Uriel remained in the sweltering car. It wasn't until Tracey's grandson arrived that she realized Uriel was missing. And by the time she rushed to the car, it was too late. Uriel had succumbed to hypothermia.
She gets home.
Uriel.
She parks the car by the house, gets out of the vehicle, closes the door, goes in the house. Never grabs Uri. Yuri's still in the back seat. Waiting, sleeping, whatever it may be, she's back there. Grandma doesn't get her. She goes in the house, plays with her dog, practices piano. While she's playing with her dog, time passes. And Yuri's suffering. While she's playing the piano, time's passing. And Yuri's alone in that vehicle. She's also on her mind, what's her primary focus is that she's got another grandchild that she's supposed to spend time with that day, and she's focused on that. She's messaging back and forth with the mom, Rebecca Tucker. She's focused on all these other things. And while she's focused on that, time passes, and Uri suffers. Hours go by. Hours. You're going to hear that Nix is there. That's Kayla's dad. And he's out there doing things that dads do, and nowadays moms do, but mowing the lawn, taking care of the property. And their property, they have a house proper, then they have a garage, barn. It's a large structure towards the back, and that's what he is. And the defendant thinks, oh, I should bring him some tea. So she grabs for herself, for him, gets into the vehicle where little Uri has been this entire time. And now we're closer to the 5 o'clock hour. The entire time. And drives to the back of the property, next to that barn, or next to the barn/garage. And she's still there. And she's still not thinking. Suddenly, oh my God, she realizes it. Hours later, she remembers, oh, I have this 7-month-old that I'm responsible for that's completely dependent on.
Uriel's death rocked the family. And for Kayla, losing a second child in less than a year was definitely an unfathomable blow. She was my perfect baby, Kayla later said in court. Her devastation turned to anger as she wrestled with the idea that her own mother had caused this tragedy. Now, following Uriel's death, Tracey Nix was arrested and charged with aggravated manslaughter of a child and leaving a child unattended in a vehicle for more than 15 minutes, resulting in great bodily harm. The trial began in January 2025 and was emotionally charged. It was moved from Hardee County, Florida to Polk County due to concerns over pretrial publicity. Now, it's very important to mention that the first baby's death was not allowed to be brought into testimony. So the jury was not allowed to hear that part. And that was due to a statute in Florida. So during the trial, Kayla gave a gut-wrenching testimony about the moment she discovered that Uriel had died. And she said, I had to identify her little body. I can't imagine.
Why did the officer show up at your door?
He showed up at my door to notify me that my child was deceased. That his words were, your baby is dead. Your daughter is dead. Your child is deceased, and we need you to come with us.
Okay.
I have to identify the body.
The defense argued that Tracey's actions were not intentional, but rather the result of a tragic mistake. Well, after 3 hours of deliberation, the jury reached a verdict, and Tracey was acquitted of aggravated manslaughter, but was found guilty of the lesser charge of leaving a child unattended in a vehicle. She now faces up to 5 years in prison, with sentencing scheduled for April of 2025.
Mr. Fletcher, Tracey Nix having been found guilty by a jury as to the charge of leaving the child unattended in the vehicle for more than 15 minutes, contained in case number CF-22-289, I now find you to be guilty of the offense. State what's your position on remand or bond.
Your Honor, she's been convicted at this point. I would ask that she take it easy.
Defense position on remand or bond.
Your Honor, I request that she be allowed to be out on bond until we have a sentencing hearing. We'll be requesting a less than guideline sentence. We'll request, based on my experts, that you partially heard that her sentence be below guidelines. I have also had my office contact the bail bondsman. He is willing to remain on the bond. I can tell you that as an officer of the court. There's plenty of time to incarcerate her. I do need her also to be able to prepare for sentencing.
All right, state anything further?
And further, Judge, she's been on pretrial release for over 2 years. There hadn't been a seconds problem with her. She's been to every court appearance that we've had, and I see no reason to remand her at this time.
State anything further?
No, state stands by its previous position.
All right, a sentencing date of April 3rd at 8:30 a.m. Does that work with state?
We will make it work.
Defense, does that work with defense?
Same as the state. We'll make it work.
All right. At this point in time, based on the jury verdict of guilty, I'm remaining you in custody, Ms. Nix. You are to be either the sheriff pending the pre-sentence investigation report by the Florida Parole and Probation Commission. Your bond is hereby revoked. There will be held as no bond. I hereby order the Florida Parole and Probation Commission to prepare a pre-sentence investigation report on the defendant and furnish same report as soon as practical. You will appear April 3rd, 2025 in the Hardy County Courthouse at 8:30 a.m. I've set aside a full day for the sentencing. I ask the defense and the state to be prepared to present their arguments and testimony that they feel is appropriate to have this court sentence Ms. Nix in accordance with this verdict. Anything further, state?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Anything further, defense?
There you are.
All right, all rise.
So sad. I think that was the mom of the babies crying in the back of the courtroom.
Yep, I think so.
Yeah.
5. The tragedies have really fractured the Nix families in ways that may never fully heal.
And when it comes to my family, I mean, that is complicated. In this process, due to certain circumstances, I was already pretty well distanced from them. There are some family members I haven't spoken to in years, and that breaks my heart, and I would want nothing more for that to be different. But the damage has been felt in that way greatly, and I don't know how we recover. I want that. I want us to have a family. But right now, it seems very complicated.
Kayla Nix has spoken candidly about the complex emotions she feels towards her mother. The mother in me requires justice for my daughter, she said. But there's a 5-year-old little girl in me who doesn't want bad things for my mom.
At the end,
Kayla's-
Kayla went up to her mom, who she has not spoken with since her mother was charged in her daughter's death, and hugged her, crying. She then went up to her father and hugged him as well. I reached out to Kayla after the hearing, and she said while the hug to her mom may have looked like a hug of support, she said it was really hugging her, saying, "I love you," and saying goodbye. Kayla said that for her, this is goodbye.
Kayla's words capture the very difficult balance between grief and familial love, and a balance that many families in similar situations truly struggle to maintain. This case is more than just a story about one family. It raises larger questions about caregiver responsibility, the dangers of hot cars. I mean, how many more years do we need to keep talking about the dangers of hot cars? And also the support systems that are available to prevent tragedies like these. Experts have pointed to the need for better technology in vehicles to prevent hot car deaths, such as alarms that would remind drivers to check their back seat. Others emphasize the importance of increased education and awareness for caregivers, and especially for older adults who may not be as attuned to the risk of modern child rearing. As for water safety, Ezra's drowning reminds us of the critical need for fences and alarms and constant supervision around bodies of water, especially when children are around. These safety measures might seem like small inconveniences, but man, they can mean the difference between life and death. The Tracey Nix case is a truly heartbreaking example of how a single moment of inattention can lead to irreversible consequences. It's a story of love, loss, and the heavy weight of responsibility. As we await Tracey's sentencing, we're left with a haunting reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of vigilance when caring for the most vulnerable among us, the children.
All right. So catching the comments, I can tell you guys kind of feel the same way I do. I was definitely very, I guess, torn. And I'll talk about it more later. She had some defense witnesses, and I think I play one of them, that kind of explains the medications that the grandmother was on and how those could affect things. So I do think that plays a part, but I don't want to get ahead of myself on it. So let's go into the next one. So this is, these are the opening statements of the trial that was just last week. So this is from Court TV 8 days ago. And I'm going to speed this up as well, if you guys don't mind. I think 1.25 will be okay.
Yeah, because it sounds like some of you either are apathetic or on drugs when you speed it up without telling us. I want to tell you that, like, wow, that sounds a little intoxicating, but it's good information either way.
Right. I didn't mean to interrupt you. That
You're
was
good.
loading.
You're
So
good.
yeah, it's just it's a confusing, sad case, I think. And but I want you guys to, I put the poll in the beginning of the live to see what you came in thinking. And so 54% do think, 54% think that she should have been found guilty. All right, so we got like 40-some% of you that haven't even taken it. So at the very top of the chat is the poll. So if you guys would just click, which one you think, and then I'd like to see if that changes towards the end of this.
Yeah.
Yep is a member for 3 months. Thank you so much, Yep. Really appreciate you. And AMT, thank you again for your super chat earlier. Appreciate that.
Very much so.
Okay, so this is the opening statements. It's going to be the prosecution. This, again, took place in Florida. So it's the state, the prosecutor, and the defense attorney.
Uncle baby girl come to be where she was. Her grandmother, the defendant, Tracey Nix. To understand how all this happened, let's go back to that day, November 1st, 2022. Tracey Nix that day, the defendant, went to a prayer meeting with some friends. Brenda Knight, Barbara Knight, Judy Terrell. They had a meeting. During that meeting, it was discussed that we should go to lunch. Let's go to Beef Brady's. Okay. The defendant didn't go there right away. You see, she has a daughter, Kayla Nix. Kayla Nix also has a daughter, Uriel, also known as Uri. That day, Kayla had a hair appointment. And with any 7-month-old, she needed someone to babysit so she could go get that done. So she called her mother. Who else would you call, right? A good babysitter that you can leave her with. So that's what Kayla did. And it was agreed that the defendant would come to Kayla and her husband Drew Schott's business and pick up little Uri. And then take care of her for most of the day till the end of the day, around 5 o'clock after the business closed. And that would be that. So the defendant got in her vehicle. She leaves that prayer meeting. She drives to Kayla's business.
Is that like kind of spinning for you too?
I actually muted myself for once. Yeah, it's cutting in and out for me. I don't know.
It is. Okay, let me reload it and maybe that'll help.
With lunch with the ladies, some of the ladies she had Bible study with. You can see, I think that State will introduce the video showing the attention that was given to Uri by Tracey Nix. How she was acting toward her, and you will see how much she loved and cared for this child. After Beef O'Brady's, Tracey took the child home. I think it's about an 11-minute drive. They were doing roofing at her house that day. She couldn't park in the garage. I think you'll hear her statement. She doesn't remember where she parked, but she parked under a tree because she couldn't park in the garage. So she was distracted by that. The dog was in the way. She was distracted by the dog. She got out. She forgot the child. She forgot the child in the car. There's no doubt about that. She went in the house. She spent some time. She was focused. She was supposed to take her grandson by another daughter out to go really Christmas shopping and to take him out to eat. She was concerned about that. She gets in the car. She drives out to the barn. She's talking to her husband, and she realizes what's happened. She forgot. There's no aggravating factors here that make this culpable negligence as opposed to simple negligence, forgetting something. We all do that. You will see her reaction. You will see how she feels when this happens. And it's completely devastated, completely. And I won't discuss it now because I think pictures and videos are worth thousands of words. I'll let you decide how she felt, how this amount occurred, what she did, what she said, and how she felt. So this offense position is this was negligence. It was simple negligence. It was an accident. Under Florida law, it does not amount to culpable negligence. If you will follow the jury instructions, in this case, read the instructions on culpable negligence. I think you'll be able to take them back in the jury room with you. You will see what I'm saying. As horrible as this tragedy is, it's not culpable negligence. Thank you.
All right. Steve, Royce.
All right. So what do you think of the defense opening statement this morning?
So what happened was when I had that on 1.25, for some reason it was messing up. So I had skipped the prosecutor. So let me go back to the prosecutor, and I slowed it down to normal speed, which seems to be working now. Sorry about that.
So the defendant got in her vehicle. She leaves that prayer meeting. She drives to Kayla's business. She picks up 7-month-old little Uriel. She gets a car seat, puts it in the back of her vehicle. She gets a diaper bag because she's going to be taking care of a 7-month-old. She needs all the supplies. She needs diapers, she needs wipes, she needs food, she needs extra clothing. So she gets all that, puts it in her vehicle. Brenda Knight, Gail, who's also she's known as, can be confusing sometimes, but we heard her call Gail. She was with her at that time. And she's talking all this stuff. They then proceeded to veto Brady's. Now, this is around a little after the 12 o'clock hour or so. They get there, they eat lunch there. It's the defendant, Gail, Brenda, and Judy. They eat their lunch, the defendant, and Yuri's there with the defendant. She's taking care of her. She's being attentive towards her. She brings the diaper bag in, sets it down, does everything that's expected of a good babysitter. Looks out for Yuri that entire meal, is attentive to her, holds her, bounces her on her knee, feeds her, takes a straw, puts it in the water, puts it in your little Yuri's mouth. Everything a good babysitter should do. That's what she did. That's what you're going to see. Now, when did they leave? Well, you're going to hear from all the ladies that were with the defendant that day that Gail had a young grandson who was 5 years old. And she was pretty insistent to make sure they all knew. I got to go pick her up at I got to go pick him up at 1:50. So they all know. We left probably around 1:40. Between 1:40 and 1:50 because Gail had to get there. She was insistent. They leave these. The defendant grabs Uri, grabs a diaper bag, goes to the car, opens the door, puts her in the back seat, puts her in the car seat, like the babysitter should, closes the door, gets in the vehicle, drives straight home. About a 10-minute drive. She gets home. She parks the car by the house, gets out of the vehicle, closes the door, goes in the house. Never grabs Uri. Yuri's still in the back seat, waiting, sleeping, whatever it may be, she's back there. Grandma doesn't get her. She goes in the house, plays with her dog, practices piano. While she's playing with her dog, time passes. Yuri's suffering. While she's playing the piano, time's passing, and Yuri's alone in that vehicle. She's also on her mind, what's the primary focus? Is that she's got another grandchild that she's supposed to spend time with that day, and she's focused on that. She's messaging back and forth with the mom, Rebecca Tucker. She's focused on all these other things. And while she's focused on that, time passes, and Yuri suffers. Hours go by. Hours. You're going to hear that Nix is there. That's Kayla's dad. And he's out there doing things that dads do, and nowadays moms do, but mowing the lawn, taking care of the property. And their property, they have a house proper, then they have a garage, farm. It's a large structure towards the back, and that's where he is. And the defendant thinks, oh, I should bring some tea. So she grabs for herself, for him, gets into the vehicle where little Uri has been this entire time. And now we're closer to the 5 o'clock hour. The entire time. And drives to the back of the property, next to that barn, or next to the barn/garage. And she's still there. And she's still not thinking about it. Suddenly, oh my God, she realizes it. Hours later, she remembers, oh, I have this 7-month-old that I'm responsible for that can be dependent on me. She obviously lets Nay know. From there on out, it's a mad rush. He grabs her out of the vehicle, puts her on ground, starts doing CPR. 911's called. By that time, sometime in this period when Yuri's being taken from the vehicle, put on the ground, that's when Rebecca Tucker gets there with the grandson that the defendant was so focused on. She calls 911. And you can hear it in her voice, the desperation. And all she can think about, Rebecca Tucker, is
I just want to pause real quick. The Husker RN said routine is one thing, but once in the house, Grandma should have seen some of Yuri's personal belongings that were brought over that day, and that should have triggered her memory that she was caring for Uri. But didn't she go pick Uri up? So I think she took her to lunch with the friends. So when Grandma got back home, she didn't take anything of Yuri's inside, like the diaper bag. You're muted, Tara. She's like, where's that?
I never mute myself, and this is why. Yeah, she did pick Uri up from Mom and Dad's work because they owned their own business. But do I recall properly that Grandma and Grandpa had a designated room for the grandkids?
I believe it was stated somewhere, yes, they did have something, but I don't know if they necessarily did for Uri, maybe the other grandchild.
They were all, it was because they would have, I want to say, if I remember listening to the trial stuff,
like she had like a crib or something like that there,
there was
I
a crib
think.
and it wasn't a changing table, but it was a dresser with like a changing pad on it. Like she was equipped so that if any of the grandkids came over, no matter their ages, that room was prepared for any grandchild to come over between Yuri's age and the little preteen that was there that day with his mother, Rebecca, who made the 911 call. So she, to Husker's point, you and I have great minds because I was just typing that out as you stopped the video. She had a designated room for her grandkids. It was one room they all shared, but she didn't have I doubt all, however many of them there are. I doubt they were all in there at the same time, but there was one designated room for any grandchild, not a specific one.
Right. Tara, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships.
You're welcome.
And if you got one, please thank Tara. And I don't know that I intended on doing it, and I can't go look right now because I'll mess myself up, but I think I put it on subscriber chat only. So if you're unable to type in the chat and you're not subscribed to the channel, that's probably why.
Yeah, it is. It's chat. Does it? I'm a subscriber, so I would I don't know. I was trying to
Yeah, let me see. I don't know how to change it without messing things up, so I don't want to do that. But all you have to do is click subscribe. You don't have to pay. You don't have to do anything like that. Subscribe, and then you can chat. So, all right, let's continue with this.
I need to get my son away from this. This isn't good. You can hear tell the animal operator that's like, my mother will call you. My mother will call you. And meanwhile, May is frantically trying to get CPR to this little 7-month-old. EMTs arrive to the scene, and they take over, and they do their best. They do what they can. But unfortunately, they noticed it's too late. It's too late. They had to stop life-saving measures at the scene because they noticed she started showing signs of rigor and lividity. And they'll explain what that is, but clear signs, she ain't coming back. So they stopped. She was brought to the hospital anyway because the scene is so emotional. There are people there that are obviously upset. The defendant is upset. Her husband's upset. Everyone there is upset. This is an upsetting event for everyone involved. So it was best just to bring her to the hospital. And from there, after she was brought to the hospital, there's no treatment. She's already gone. They brought her to Moody. They brought her to the medical examiner. Members of the jury, that's what we're looking at here. Those are the events. That's how we got here. Let's talk about a few things that you're going to see and hear from other than what I've already talked about. I said she was brought to the morgue. She was brought to the medical examiner's office. That's Dr. Variable. She performs an autopsy. And she, based on her examination, when she viewed it, Uri died of hyperthermia. I don't think you need to be a doctor to understand that. Hypothermia is freezing. Hyperthermia. Basically, she overheated to death. That's what you're going to hear. And all the things that I talked about that the defendant was doing, you're going to hear that from her own mouth. She gave a statement. You're going to see it and hear it. You're going to see a few other pieces of evidence, photos, things of that nature. You're going to see the body cam footage of when the detective showed up. And you're going to hear again from the defendant at that time. Members of the jury, at the end of this case, we're going to do what's called closing arguments. And in our system, you are given instructions on the law at the end of the case because we want you to focus on the facts. And that's what I would ask you to do. I know during jury selection, there was some talk of it's not about the act, it's not about the result. I disagree. Members of the jury, we are here today and for the next few days, not to determine whether or not Tracey Nix is a good person. We want to focus on her actions, inactions, and the results of those actions. And if you do that, and you focus on those facts as we go through here today, you're going to come to several conclusions. You're going to come to the conclusion that this was a tragedy, that this was negligence. But when you hear the law, you're going to determine that negligence was a crime. And I'm going to ask that you find her guilty of the crime of aggravated manslaughter of 7-month-old Uriel. Thank you.
Aggravated manslaughter is what the prosecutor is going for the death of baby Uri. I want to put something in perspective for you all.
Good morning.
Please state your name for the
Wow, it's tough. So, yeah, that was the problem. Sorry, you guys. I didn't realize I had done that. I clicked an extra button there when I set it up.
Did you scare Shariah off with that? Shariah, if you're still there, try to type back. I could see Shariah, so I don't know if she could.
Well, I got a text and I'm like, wait, there's nobody blocked. I don't know what's going on here. And then I went, it says subscribers only. So I'm really sorry about that. I never turn on subscribers only.
Don't listen to her. She's lying. She likes to do that to see who's paying attention. She likes to get subscribers that way.
Come for me. So yeah, I think a couple important things that people do remember is the mother and father of the two young children were not aware that the state originally did try to press charges on Ezra, who basically grandma was sleeping. He got out the door and into the family. There's a pond right there on their property, and he was found drowned in that pond. So the state did not press charges on that. And then due to a Florida statute, they could not present that information to the jury. Now the judge is aware, so can he use that in his sentencing? Possibly, but the jury was not allowed to hear about the other case. And I do wonder what you guys think. Would it have changed the jury's mind?
Well, I want to talk
they'd
to a
known it
juror
was
now. I want to talk to a juror now who's got to know, who has seen the footage, who has seen everything on the behind the scenes, and I want to know what they think. Would they be like, "Holy crap, you guys should have told us that. What the hell?" Like I want to see their reactions to that, because I think, as if I was one of those jurors that didn't have that information before and got it after, I might feel a little icky. I'd want more information to understand. Is there a lot of dynamics that we're missing?
Yeah, I didn't even think about that part, Tara. Like, imagine being one of the jurors and finding out after the fact. How would you feel? I think I would be gutted.
I would feel robbed of information. Like, did I just do a bad thing to this family? Because I feel, even though you're not guilty as a jury member, I'd feel guilty. Like, I that's where I have problems at with some of this. Is I want to know how those jurors feel. The mother has definitely done a great job of portraying the complexities of her feelings. Like, as a daughter for her mother, she doesn't want bad things to happen. She doesn't want her to go to jail. But as a mother of the children who lost, you want justice for those kids. You want somebody. If this had been a babysitter that had done this to two children in the same daycare in the same year, none of us would be having this conversation. That broad, that daycare provider, that babysitter would be in jail, and that's where we'd want her. But this is so peculiar.
Now there's something in Florida, and maybe Yep can look it up, or she already knows probably.
She probably already knows.
There is something in Florida. I don't know if it's a statute, bill. I'm not sure what it is. Where the first occurrence of a child drowning in, say, the family pool, pond, things like that, if it is truly an accident, the child slips out the door kind of thing, that they will not prosecute for that. And that's like across the board in Florida, at least for the first time. So somebody in chat knows, or they'll look it up or something, but I know there's something to that effect. So that's why she wasn't charged the first time. And I do have the police report on Ezra when he drowned. So, and I can read that to you guys. And actually,
So, while you're doing that, yep, the pattern, that's the problem that I have, is a pattern. It's two children. One, I think Ezra was 14 months, 15 months. Uriel was 7 or 8 months. They're both, they lose their lives within a year of one another from the same parent, who has already said, and we saw it on the video that Kari showed us, she's been distant from certain family members to the point where she's not talked to a few of them, and it breaks her heart. So I don't want to suggest ill intent, but man, is there some parents out there that can help us understand? Are you more attentive to certain kids when you're closer to that child parent? And are you more distant with the other? Like, is there a dynamic here that maybe we've not considered that's hard to define and even more so uncomfortable to talk about? Like, who's going to want to admit to, I'm a grandparent, I don't care for these grandkids as much because they came from the kid that I don't get along with, but I adore these grandkids because I get along with that parent better. So there is that dynamic present or not? That's it's a nasty question to explore. It really is. It's gross, but it might be worthwhile to looking into.
yeah.
Chris, I had heard, Chris, I'm not even gonna try saying your last name. It looks like Strubing. I had heard the same. I've seen that several times. Chris says Tracey was fired from her job due to quote unquote forgetfulness. I feel so sorry for Kayla. Holy crap! I've got somebody trying to intercept the. Somebody's trying to FaceTime me right now. I'm like, clearly you don't know I'm live.
Yeah, she did get let go. And there was like, I don't know if it's rumors or not. So yeah, never mind. I won't even say it. I don't know if it's a rumor or not. But yeah, I think grandma might have had issues in the past, possibly with the forgetting. But they did completely rule out any kind of, oh gosh, help me here, Tara. It's the word I'm thinking of. Alzheimer's or anything like that. That's
Dementia, forget. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So this, go ahead.
And that's testy, right? Because if you, for me, that's testy. If she's forgetting things and she was let go from her job as a principal for a school, an elementary school, I believe, and you were let go because of your forgetfulness. I know as a family you want to have the most faith you can, but what is that? Define forgetfulness for me. Is it dementia? Is it early stages dementia? Is it early? Somebody get in the chat and help us define this. I'll go look at it later on, but what are we talking about here when we're talking about being let go from a job for quote unquote forgetfulness? If that is in fact how it was described in her termination. That's one thing I'd want to see, is I want to know somebody that was at that position that terminated her to tell us, yes, it was forgetfulness. That would be great. I don't want to try and create a narrative that doesn't exist.
Right. So this is one of the supplement reports from an officer who was there at the scene for Ezra on December 22nd, 21. And it's Detective Shane Ward. He said, I responded to the incident location, a dwelling property, in reference to a child drowning incident. EMS was on scene tending to the victim on my arrival. The homeowner's Nunne Nix was outside, and he told me his wife, Tracey Nix, was inside changing clothes. I determined the following series of events based on statements made to me by the Nixes and their neighbor. The victim, meaning Ezra, was being supervised by his grandparents, Mr. and Mrs. Nix, at their home. No one else was at the home. There is a large pond that is stocked with ducks located on the west side of their property within feet of their home. Mr. Nix was rocking the victim in a recliner in the living room. His wife was on an adjacent sofa. Mr. Nix stated he left the victim sleeping in the recliner and left his wife, who he said was awake, to go to Walmart and run some errands. Mrs. Nix corroborated this, but told me that she drifted off to sleep, and this comes into play in this trial too. But she drifted off to sleep and was not awake when her husband left. At some point, Mrs. Nix awoke and couldn't find the victim. She told me the garage entrance door was ajar. She searched outside for the victim and drove her vehicle to the end of the driveway and looked down something. At some point, she called her husband and informed him she couldn't find, they say the victim. I don't want to say, it's Ezra. It's a little boy. It's a baby. She said as she turned around to drive back to the residence, she saw Ezra face down in the pond. She drove over to him and pulled him out of the water, started CPR that she had been trained on from working for the school system. She did not call 911. That's interesting. A neighbor heard her screaming and told me he saw Mrs. Nix giving CPR to the victim on the ground. He said her vehicle was parked along the fence in the front yard, consistent with her statements to me. He never saw the victim in the water, nor did he see Mrs. Nix pull the victim from the water. He stated when he returned to the yard, Mr. Nix had arrived and joined Mrs. Nix in performing CPR. Mr. Nix consented for me to enter his home. He showed me the living room layout and described where everyone had been seated. And there's one more here. Let me pull that one up. I have it on my screen. Let me get it to your screen. Okay. All right. He confirmed that he used the garage door to leave the home. I advised him that his wife stated she found the door ajar, and he shook his head and said he closed the door. I asked Mr. Nix how much time had elapsed from when he left for Walmart and when he received a call from his wife, 15, 20, 25 minutes. He said it could have been up to an hour. I measured the distance from the floor to the door handle is 35 inches. The handle was a pull handle and not a knob-style fixture, which could easily be opened by the victim if they reached it to pull down on it. I asked Mr. Nix if they'd had any issues with victim opening doors before, and he indicated interior doors. I was informed the victim was airlifted to TGH with a faint pulse. Both parents were called by Mr. Nix and responded to the scene prior to the victim being transported. I checked the CAD system and found no prior incidents involving child abuse or neglect. At this time, the incident appears to be a tragic accident involving non-criminal negligence. So, and that's how Florida deemed that whole situation.
I kind of want to call shenanigans on that too a bit. I have a hard time with this.
See, this is where I'm at. I'm there. I sat here and thought about this today because I have my grandkids every single day. If this had happened to one, oh my gosh, if this had happened in my life with one, I think I would just have so much PTSD over losing that one child that I would be terrified to watch the other grandkids. And like I have a story of that. I have a really good friend who lost a child, a newborn. She lived with me in my home, and the baby was a newborn, and she was sleeping with the baby, breastfeeding, and the baby suffocated. And it was determined to be SIDS, but so when I had my son, he was born just maybe a year or so, 2 years later, I was so dead set against sleeping with babies, dead set. So we went out and we bought at the time it was like $300 and attached to the side of your bed, so you couldn't just roll over on them and stuff. I mean, I was terrified, and still to this day, things like parents sleeping with their newborns terrifies me because of that. So I know, me personally, I would be absolutely terrified to watch my poor grandkids again. I'd be afraid I'd screw up.
Well, that's that self-awareness thing, though, right? That, okay, so maybe I've got a boundary here that I didn't know about. What are you looking at? Yeah, I know.
So Iris, he forgets the word dementia. Yeah, we might need to check on me before
check my comment after that one. That's seems legit.
Yeah, pretty much.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've hung out with this one. I'm just saying, there's a reason I'm here.
Oh no.
No, I was there was times I would sleep with my children in my bed, but they weren't in between me and my husband at the time. I'm clearly not married. My kids wanted to sleep. They were littles, and they didn't want to sleep with me. Macy didn't want to sleep with me back until she was like 2 or 3 years old. So she's past that point of being really smothered. But as babies, when they would do their last feeding at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, they just wanted to sleep on mom's chest. That's where and it wasn't like for easy access. It was, Macy was the worst at it. She would want to just sleep on my chest, and then we'd wake up and start our morning together. I know I slept with all 3 of my kids in the hospital bed, but I was so vigilant. I don't sleep well anyway.
I don't
Even
either,
to this day, I really don't sleep well. It doesn't matter where. I don't wake up refreshed or anything like that. But if I know I've got an infant in the room, my situational awareness is heightened. You can open a silent door, and people have seen my. I think Macy's dad saw me do it. We were in the hospital. A door opened, completely silent. I woke up to it, and he's like, "How in the hell did you wake up to that?" I'm like, "I've got a kid with me, so I'm hyper." But I've been that way. I was raising kids. I use that loosely, right? Because my siblings, since I was 9, my sister was born when I was 9. My brother, I was 13, and he was a preemie, and I had to do CPR training, and so hypervigilance started early on.
Yeah.
Now, I have seen a child left in their car. My parents did that. They left my sister in the car. It was Texas, summer, sweltering heat. She was not an infant, right? She was walking age, I think. But she was in a front-facing car seat in the middle of the car. My parents thought, because they relied on us so much when it came to her, and so everybody got out the car in the garage. We thought mom and dad were going to get her. Mom and dad thought we were going to get her. She was in the car. When we got back to her, she was screaming, crying, red-faced, sweating. Her hair was completely drenched from sweat, but she survived because she was old enough to. She actually, she was, and I don't know how long she was out there. I'm too young to understand the time frame at that point, but she was out there, and she'd been infected enough by the heat.
I know, like, I haven't had little grandchildren around for a while, and one of my daughters came yesterday, and she's got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. And let me tell you, I found out real fast how not childproof my house is. But my oldest son, I childproofed everything in the world. And I'm telling you, when they say that toddlers can't get out, they can. Because that kid found every single way. I had child locks up at the top of my doors. He made it out the front door with a child lock up top. We had a swimming pool, and it was in Arizona. So we had a child fence built around it immediately when we bought the home. You know that little shit found a way out the child-proof back door, found a little chair because they had a little playground thing with the slide and stuff, and managed to get over that child fence for the pool. And I found him in that pool in the nick of time. It does and can happen. Like, I know I have the worst luck in the world. So if it can happen, it's going to happen to me. But I'm just saying
we're not talking about your luck. That's as mean as it is for me to say that. We're not talking about your damn luck.
Those things really,
1
they
year.
really can.
I've even known you for a year. Your luck is the shittiest of anybody I've ever met.
Oh, it is.
But I say that lovingly. I say that very lovingly, so much lovingly. But when you've got a kid that, if you're alert, you're around the house, it's one of those things, right, where you're doing something and you realize, oh, that kid's quiet. I need to go check on that kid. They're being too quiet. Like, that alerts you to something.
Yeah.
I can't imagine being in a vehicle and forgetting my child, or having a child in my care, and I decide to fall asleep with, if I understand correctly, she used prescription medication.
Yes, she did, and that's in here. Yeah, she was taking a few different things.
Yeah.
Ambien in one of them.
Now, is it true, or has it been confirmed or verified that the child was actually supposed to be in Grandpa's care? Grandpa thought Ezra and Grandma were both sleeping. He snuck out thinking no harm, no foul. Ezra woke up and found his way outside. So Grandma didn't even know she was home alone with him?
That I don't know.
That was something that in one of the videos, I thought was one of the ones you sent to me, but it may have been one I found on my own and should have sent back to you, which would make this conversation probably a little more rich. It sounds like everything else I've heard says that Grandma was supposed to be in charge. She was supposed to be taking care of the kid. But there's one video I have heard, not testimony, it was just a report that stated Grandpa thought both grandma and grandson were sleeping, so he left, not telling grandma he left. It didn't
Right.
mention anything about her taking any kind of a sleeping pill at all. It just said that he left thinking both were going to be asleep. Didn't say what he was going to do. He just left the garage door open behind him.
Yep, said no because she got up looking for him. I'm not really sure. AMT, the daughter, no, she's not being charged. No, gosh, no, she didn't do anything wrong.
Well,
She's just
that's
going through hell.
Well, some of the rhetoric out there on Facebook. So I went through mom's Facebook and I went through a few
Oh yeah,
Facebook groups where
yeah,
mom is at. People are attacking mom, and mom is fighting back hard.
yes,
Fighter.
she is. I'm gonna show some of those
Something.
posts.
I am
Well,
so
and
impressed
now
by
she
her.
now she's angry and wants justice for Ezra too, and she
Yeah.
says, I think in one of these videos I'm gonna
Well,
just play, that Ezra has been lost in this, So, yeah, she's very vocal and she's
yep.
definitely talking. And Tara did reach out to her, so if we could get
We're
her
working it.
to come and talk about her experience and, how this is, I'm really interested in the family dynamic. I think that would be so, so hard to deal with. Oh my gosh, like it's her mother. She loves her mother. This would just be an incredibly difficult situation, I think, to handle. And I'd like to know how she's doing, what they plan. Do they have any future plans? Is there anything that they plan on bringing justice for Ezra, or is it to bring awareness for the situations? That kind of thing. I'd like to
Well,
talk to her about that.
yeah, they've got
And yeah,
two
Rock,
very
that's
different
true.
situations. Yeah. They've got two very different situations. One kid, I mean, the situations are a result of the same thing. It's absent-mindedness.
Yeah.
But at some point in time, to the points that have been made here, when do you realize you're absent-minded and you need to start paying a little better attention? That's my problem with this case, is we've lost one and less
Mm-hmm.
than a year later. While
11 months.
mom's pregnant with the kid that's going to pass next. When the first kid passes, that's hard enough. In fact, I think I saw a video somewhere where when DA was questioned about why didn't you tell the parents about the charges you were considering pressing against mom when it
Because
came to
she
Ezra,
was,
she was pregnant and they did not want to
Mhm.
stress her out. And it's like,
Yep.
well,
So they cut the
unfortunately,
information from her. Yeah.
and would that have made a difference if they had known? And so that is not having that information has ticked mom and dad off.
Yeah.
But
And I agree. Ambien should be banned. I have never personally taken Ambien. Now, I have a prescription for another medicine that she does take. And I'll tell you guys when we get to that point. And I can tell you that, yeah, it knocks me flat out. But
Mhm.
I know that it does that. Rock Talk she can testify to that too. It flat out knocked me right out. But I also wouldn't be taking care of an 11-month-old baby or a 2-year-old or a 4 or even a 5-year-old.
Well, she took the medicine during the day.
Yeah, see, no.
Daytime. Well, I've taken an Ambien, but the
Yeah.
Ambien was
Right.
Jim's, and he advised I take a quarter because he takes a half. And
Mhm.
I was all upset. It was one of those things. He's like, just try this, see if you like it. If so, go talk to your doctor. A
Right.
quarter of a pill was enough. I fell right asleep. I'm like, okay, cool. It
Well,
wasn't restful sleep. And I woke up the next morning in a fog. Like my head could not clear. I'm like, we are not doing this again. Who does this? Like, is this what you guys go
mhm.
through? And he's like, no, I process it out the next day. That's why I don't take a full pill. I'm like, you're nuts.
Right.
You're
Well,
absolutely
and yeah, in your position, yeah, you do need that. And I think also they do talk about she was on a very high dosage that she should not have been on. There was no reason for her at 65 years old to be on this high of a dosage. So I think the dosage is also an issue. You know what I mean? Like it's not just Ambien itself, but she has taken Ambien, but she has also taken the other prescription, and I can't remember the name of it, but I do take it on occasion. And that one alone knocks me out. So I can't imagine taking an Ambien on top of it, and she knew she had the children. So there's where my real issue lies, is she knew she had them.
Why? Why do you take
Yeah.
Ambien during the day? Why? If
Well,
anybody has that kind
I
of
had an
experience-
addicted brother that did that.
Oh
He's no
boy.
longer on
It's
the earth.
addictive?
Yeah, he
Ambien is
was. He
addictive?
would take it during the day. Yeah,
Oh
he
boy.
took it. He'd get high on it.
Yep, I didn't. She's on Xanax. I did not
I'm not
hear
sure.
this.
They list the prescriptions that they list them here later on. So this next video, this is Kayla. So this is the baby, both Ezra and
Uriel's.
Uriel. Sorry, Uri and Uriel. So Uri and Ezra's mother on the stand here. So let's watch this one real quick.
Kayla Nix.
And Miss Nix, where do you live?
I live in Wauchula, Florida.
And how long have you lived there for?
I was born and raised there. I left after high school and then came back probably a decade later and have been back in the community since 2016.
May I ask you a few questions about your family?
Absolutely.
Who do you live with? I'm sorry, who is that?
Drew Shock.
Anyone else live with you?
I do have a 5.5-year-old son. His name is Asher. And then I also have a 4.5-month-old baby girl. Her name is Adriel.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And can I ask you a few questions about the rest of your family?
Absolutely.
Do you have any brothers, sisters?
I do. I have one sister. Her name is Rebecca Tucker.
And is she married?
Yes, to Jonathan Tucker.
And do they have any children?
Yes, they do. They have two, Cooper and Aiden.
And who is New Nix?
Nix
Nix,
is
I'm
my,
sorry.
yeah, that's my father.
I apologize for the
No worries.
pronunciation.
He goes by Nay, so I might refer to him as such.
And how about Tracey Nix? Who is that?
That is my mother.
And is she in the courtroom today?
She is.
Could you identify her by an article of clothing she's wearing?
Absolutely. She is wearing a dress with purple, pink, black, and white.
Thank you, ma'am. The record should reflect that the witness has identified the defendant.
So reflect.
And where does she live?
She also lives in Wauchula, Florida.
Okay. And Wauchula, that's in Hardy?
Yes, Hardy County.
Now, I'm sorry about this, but I have to go back to November 1st of 2022, okay?
Okay.
All right. Can I ask you about one more person?
Oh, absolutely.
Did you know a Uriel Shock?
I did. I did. That's my daughter. Excuse me. She was born in 2022, and she was my rainbow baby that I got to have a beautiful 7 months with before I was notified that she was deceased.
Okay. And we're going to get there, man. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But she was 7 months old around November?
Yes.
Okay. And so that day, November 1st of 2022, what were you doing that day, man?
My husband and I own a small business in Wauchula, A1 Safari Glass. I have always been a full-time mom first before my career. And so every one of my children actually go to work with me every day that I attend work, unless they're sick.
And so did Yuri go to work with you that day?
Yes, my daughter went to work with me that day. And typically my routine was to leave at lunch so that I could get the baby home, get them fed, and then let them nap, let her nap in, her own room. So.
And I'm sorry, you called Uriel Yuri?
Yes, yeah, Yuri.
And so, well, did you follow that plan that day or was it different?
Well, that day began out most similarly to all my other days. Get up in the morning. My daughter and I went to my office. We began the work day. I remembered I had a hair appointment and I reached out to my mother at that point and asked if she was busy.
Let me ask you this. How did you reach out to her?
Via text.
Okay. And were you able to get a hold of your mom?
Yes, I was.
And what was the nature of that conversation you had with her?
I don't remember specifically if we actually had a phone call or if it was exclusively text message, but the question was, I have a hair appointment at this certain location. And she responded that she had a lunch with a few of her friends. Those friends are people that I've grown up with my entire life. So I certainly felt comfortable in that circumstance, allowing my daughter to go to the restaurant with my mom. That restaurant was pretty much in the same block as the hair salon that I went to. So I knew I would be nearby.
Excellent. And how long was she going to take care of her?
From pre-lunch, whenever she picked her up to go to the lunch, I probably left 20 minutes or so before she arrived at my office to pick up my daughter. And then the plan was for my husband to stop back by their house at the end of the day when he leaves our business, pick up our daughter and come home.
And the end of the day, what's the end of the day for your business typically?
4:30 or 5.
And he was going to go where to pick her up?
To my parents' house on Kazan Road to pick her up.
So you went to your hair appointment?
I did.
And from the time that you completed your hair appointment, when was the next time you heard anything about your daughter?
I finished My hair appointment pretty soon. I was not a long appointment. I'd say it was about 75 minutes. And at that point, I went home to begin dinner and move the laundry and just start an evening routine that I would typically do at home with my child. So I went home expecting my husband to pick up my daughter from my parents' house.
Okay.
And the next time that I heard another thing about her was Officer David Drake outside of my home in Wauchula.
And we'll get there in a moment, if you don't mind. So between the time that you saw the officer and the time that you left your hair appointment, did you have any communications with your mother?
I do not believe that I did.
Okay. Now, let me back up for one moment. I apologize. Does your mom have everything she needs to take care of Uri whenever she takes her, or do you have to supply those to her?
Absolutely. I always pack her bag for the office. So she comes every day that we leave the house. She does come with a bag full of multiple supplies items. But then at her house, my sister had children and they actually lived in her home for a while. So there was a bedroom dedicated to just whatever grandchild was at the house at that time. And so she actually has a crib there, changing table, or no, not a changing table, just simply a dresser with diapers and clothing and all of the things.
And then on that day, did you supply your mom with anything to help take care of Uri?
Absolutely. Yes. I sent her with a standard bag that I would pack for myself. So she would have multiple clothes, diapers, wipes, creams, food.
And does she have a car seat in her vehicle, or does that one have to be put in there?
One has to be put in there.
Okay. So when she picked up Uri that day, she would have also had to put the car seat in?
Absolutely. She typically put her seat in behind the driver's seat.
Okay.
So.
So grandma didn't have a car seat just for Uri. She had to get one
You
each
just heard me say I
time.
can't hear anything. Seems like the audio dropped off for me, but we were going to hit a break anyway. So let's do that right now. We'll get back into the courtroom together live right after this.
Did you know Scripps News is streaming for free?
Let's go to the point where the officer showed up at your door. Was that, do you remember what time of day that was approximately?
My guess would be 2:30, 3 o'clock. I was not on any sort of a regimented schedule at that point. So it would have been sometime between probably 3 and 4, I would imagine.
Now, this was a while ago?
Oh, absolutely. It's 2 years ago.
Okay. Whatever time that might have been.
Right.
Why did the officer show up at your door?
He showed up at my door to notify me that my child was deceased. That his words were, "Your baby is dead. Your daughter is dead. Your child is deceased, and we need you to come with us."
Okay.
I have to identify the body.
Okay. Where did you go, ma'am?
I got in the vehicle with the sheriff that came to get me. They did not believe that I should be driving, which I agree. And he took me to the Florida Advent Hospital in Wauchula.
Okay. And you said you had to identify Uri?
Yes, I did.
And you saw her?
I was not with my husband in that moment. And so as soon as we found each other in that parking lot, which was sheer insanity, then we went in together to look at our daughter and identify her body.
I'm sorry we had to go through this. I have no further questions, okay?
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Hold on one second. I'm making that.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
And you indicated that you had a hair appointment that day?
Yes, I did.
So this is the
And
defense
when did you make that
cross-examining
hair
her now.
I would typically make them at the end of my last hair appointment. So it would have been 5 or 6 weeks, but I never added to my calendar. They send a text reminder to your phone. So I was reminded of that text that morning.
So it was just a few hours before you were supposed to be there?
Yes, sir.
When they bothered to tell you that you were supposed to be there. Didn't give you much time.
Correct. Well, I was my fault for never entering it into my calendar, but that was the text that reminded me that morning that I had not made arrangements.
Something that probably happens a lot in doctor's appointments, hair appointments, and other things.
I mean, to be frank, most of the time my children go with me pretty well everywhere. I believe that was one of the first times that I went to my hair, did one appointment that was just a personal thing. That wasn't a doctor's appointment. That wasn't concerning one of the children.
So was a kind of a last minute deal?
The child care plan was, yes.
And you notified your mother for the first time, approximately what time?
My guess would be that text would have come in 9 to maybe 10:30. So I only had a few hours.
Did you have any knowledge that your mom had a Bible study scheduled that day?
I did not know it, obviously, when I reached out to her. She might have mentioned it, although it's been 2 years. But I also could have very well taken her with me, as my daughter had, in fact, attended every other hair appointment and any appointment that I had for myself otherwise at that time. So this was the first time it was doing something for myself, not a medical appointment.
And did your mother advise you that she had this meeting?
I do not recall.
Okay. But she agreed to take the child.
She did.
All right. And she was supposed to take care of her most of the day until about 4:30?
If you call most of the day lunch to 4:30, I would say, the afternoon.
We'll say the afternoon.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. You direct? No redirect, Your Honor, and I've asked them to speak with these permission. All right.
Tracey Nix, grandmother, on trial for the death of her grandchild.
All right, so that was the mom testifying. She didn't really say a whole lot. She just kind of gave the details that she described how that day was for her, seemingly kind of an ordinary day. I don't know. What do you think, Tara? Or am I putting you on the spot with what do you think?
You're not. I
believe there was an older brother and then a cousin. And I don't know, maybe they were at school. I think so, because the cousin, the cousin was coming there later that afternoon. So
and he didn't get out of school till 4. He was in school. He wouldn't get to grandma's house for their excursion until 4 or 5 is what that mother said, which is also the grandmother's daughter. That child is around 12, I believe. I don't we've got one child that passed that was a freebie, so to speak, as awful as that sounds to say. We have a second child inside of a year. That is, and I think the best way I've heard it described is lightning striking twice. That is unusual unless you are the tallest building in the area during a lightning storm.
Yeah.
And so I have a lot of questions about this. I'm not feeling good about the jury's verdict on this one, but I also don't feel good about the charge, including the term culpability. I don't think it was intentional, but I also, and this is why I wanted to talk to the mom, because in her testimony, she claims that because grandma, her mother, was going to lunch with friends that she has known all her life and trust, she felt like there was nothing to worry about. She was going to be right down the street. They just started trusting grandma with the kids again, because in an interview they had done after Ezra, they didn't trust grandma.
Yeah, they said they were like making sure that the visits were like supervised, and so they, she let her go to lunch, but
grandpa says they were watching. I don't remember if he said grandkids or Uriel specifically 2 to 5 times a week.
Yes.
So I have questions about if grandpa's out there mowing the lawn when grandma comes home. Were you not in a position to see grandma not get out the car? If you're the parent, I personally, for me, I would like to think I would be, if I was in the situation, I'm kind of distant from the family. I kind of have some issues with the family dynamics. One of my children has already been lost in your care. And I've got this brand new rainbow baby. I'm thinking I'm probably going to be the helicopter mother from hell.
Yeah.
I'm probably not going to trust anybody with that child until I've learned to trust myself.
Right.
Again.
The flip side of that would be, we do know that kids do and can get outdoors. And after the initial shock wore off, Kayla and her husband very well could have just believed it was just a horrible, horrible tragedy and didn't truly blame her mother for it. I don't know.
So then does that, and that's why I want to talk to the mom, does that change after the second one? Because in an interview she did with her husband, they're stating they're going after justice for their other child. They're going after justice for Ezra now.
Yes.
They want their mother charged and held accountable. But that's the thing. Guilty and accountability those are not exactly synonymous.
Right.
But so I do think she's accountable. she is maybe inculpable, maybe it sounds so negative. I've taken a lot of heat for that term before, but the grandmother is responsible. She's
Right.
absolutely responsible. If so I think there's the oh, this is so difficult.
Well, and it's more difficult for us because we all know that there was the prior incident, but the jury sitting there listening to all of this testimony has no clue that there was a prior incident. So that's definitely going to, you know.
Hey, Shayna, do me a favor. Go Google culpable. I should have done that before, but now that we're talking about it, now I want to guarantee that definition. Will you look up culpable and and tell us the definition? Accountable, I get, but I want to make sure I understand culpable because I thought the charges were wrong because they included the term culpable, but Grandma's totally accountable, and she's
Yeah. And I'm like somewhere between Yep and Rock Chalk. Yep said, I also understand trying to preserve my family relationships. And it was such a mundane day, it probably seemed seemingly safe. So I can totally see that. I could see where Kayla would be coming from. And then I'm with the rest of you as well. I couldn't leave my child with my mother again. I just couldn't. It would probably be years before I'd feel safe enough. And it would have to be like years until my child could like take care of themselves, kind of old enough, you know.
When they can speak comprehensively.
Yes,
That's
yeah.
like, and that's the thing too, when like I come from a background where I was molested, and I was molested at a time when I could verbalize the actions, right? That's what you want, is for a victim to be able to speak up for themselves. These are two tiny little victims that can't speak for themselves. They cannot
Right.
verbalize. So I get they can get up and walk out the door and they can unchildproof the house. I've seen my kids do it. Childproofing is only as good as the child who doesn't watch the childproofing being unchildproofed. Like the kid watches how the gate is open, they learn how to open that gate the same way a cat learns how to open a damn door. They can figure it out just by watching and observing.
Shoot, they can figure out things that us adults can't figure out.
Well, like when
you
your
need,
kid,
you need something open to go get a 3-year-old. They'll get it for you.
correct. So it's yeah, I would not. I honestly, for me, I would, and I don't want to say I blame mom and dad, but I think there's some
Right.
accountability that goes beyond grandma on this point, because if she had forgetfulness problems, she had to have supervised visits. One kid has already been lost to this.
That's a horrible situation.
So, and that's why I say I would like to think, and I think those were the most powerful words that I learned in 5th grade when a teacher said that. I would like to think I would make different decisions, but to your point, Kari, we know the outcome.
Right. And Ruby Tuesday makes a good point. I'd like to know a little bit more about what the family dynamics were like for the months since Ezra's death, but I'd also like to know what it was like before then. Because she does give an interview, the mom does, after the verdict, I believe it was. And in that, she says that like the family relations with her family had already been strained, and this just made it worse. So I'm wondering what was going on there. Was there like a past with Kayla and her mom that we don't know about? I don't know. There's just lots of variables. And then of course, is so correct. I think it's a classic case. So you don't know until you're in that position. You would think you would act that way. And so
yeah,
true.
exactly. That's why those words I heard were so powerful. And so Shane is saying legally responsible for a criminal act. Okay, that's what I was thinking. And then Rock's bringing up a good point that makes me think if a jury would have known about the prior, I think they would be like, why?
Yes.
God forbid, what if it was worse than it was like a hung jury? And they're like, oh
my gosh, yeah.
We don't know. Some of us think she's totally 100% guilty for both passings of both grandchildren. And the rest of us are like, maybe one of them, but not both. And then the others are like, neither one. It's just lightning struck twice in this household. It's just a string of bad luck.
So now this aunt's testimony, this is Kayla's sister that's getting ready to testify. And I don't know any of this to be a fact. It's just my observations when I watch it. I get a feeling that Kayla and her sister may not be the closest of sisters. I
got a
don't know
similar
why.
feeling. Now she looks like she's about 12 in that
Shit,
shot right
yeah.
there, but she's not. She's the one with the 12-year-old that she took to the site.
So she was not found guilty of was it manslaughter?
The manslaughter, the culpable negligence.
Yeah, she was
or
found not
whatever.
guilty of the manslaughter,
Yeah.
but she was found guilty of, I guess it was like neglect,
Leaving a child in a
leaving
hot
a
car.
child.
That's
Yep,
literally what it is.
in excess of 15 minutes, causing great bodily harm. That's what she was charged with.
That one's not a strong enough charge, in my opinion. Great
And
bodily harm.
I'm almost certain that they are going to appeal this, and they're going to appeal it based on her medications. So, and we'll get to that
What do you
too.
want to bet she'll walk away from that?
She very well may. So let's listen to the aunt. This is the aunt of both the children, and this is also Tracey's daughter and Kayla's sister.
Yes,
And who's that?
she's my mom.
Did you know a Uriel shock? Who was that?
She's my niece.
Okay. Now, I know this is upsetting. I'm sorry I have to go back to it, but I do have to go back to November 1st of 2022, okay? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Ma'am, if you recall, just in general, what were you doing that day?
It was a normal day. Worked and picked my kids up from school.
Okay. Well, let me ask you in particular, were there any plans that you had with your mother, Tracey Nix, that day? Maybe not for you, but for someone in your family?
Yes, Aiden was supposed to go out of town with her.
And how was that supposed to happen?
I was to bring him to her house after school.
After school?
Mm-hmm.
And how did you communicate with your mother that day?
Through texting, I believe.
And so, do you know? You said it was supposed to be after school.
Yes,
What time was approximately after school?
between 4 and 5 p.m. I don't know exactly what time.
Okay, but roughly around then.
Right.
And did you bring Aiden to your mother's house that day?
I did.
And was it roughly in that between 4 and 5 o'clock hour?
Yes.
And what happened when you got out to your mom's house? Or let me ask you this: where does your mom live?
She lives on Kazan Road in Wauchula.
And what was going on when you got out there?
Whenever Aiden and I got out of the vehicle to check on my boys' 4-H pigs that they had at the time, I saw my mom and my dad doing something by my mom's vehicle, and I wasn't really sure, what it was. So it didn't take long at all to figure it out.
And your mom's property, is it just her house or?
No, so you have the house, and then the barn is in the back.
So where did you see your mom's vehicle?
It was down by the barn where we went.
All right. And she was doing something, but you didn't think of anything at first?
No, I couldn't see because their backs were to me.
Not only did the aunt, Rebecca, feel comfortable, she felt comfortable enough that grandma was going to take Aiden out of town.
Okay. Did you come to find out more soon after?
Mm-hmm.
What did you see?
I saw them get Uriel out of her car seat.
And when you say them, who were you talking to?
My mom or my dad, I'm not really sure which one was the one that got her out, but it was one of them.
And your dad's name?
His name is Nate.
Got Yuri out of the car seat?
Yes.
Where was Yuri placed?
Where
was she placed?
On the ground.
Okay. Anything else that was done?
My dad started performing CPR.
What did you do?
I called 911.
All right. You said you called 911?
Yes.
All right. And obviously, was that for Yuri?
Yes.
I'm showing you what's been pre-marked as State's Exhibit number 3.
So they're about to play the 911 call that Rebecca called in. Now listen to the 911 call. I too found it kind of interesting. I don't know. I kind of like Tree said. The sister's response just seemed kind of odd about the 911 call. But
Agreed.
so let's listen to it. Yeah. You could tell she was like panicked But at the same time, it's also almost like she didn't want anything to do with this. She wanted out of there. I don't know.
That's how that
Yeah.
911 call sounds too. It's like,
Mhm.
I don't want to be here. And she kept telling, like, I get it. She's got a,
Right. She
well,
had her son.
she had
She
her
didn't want her
son. I
son
need to
seeing what's going on.
but at the
But I
same
would have told the
time,
son, you go back up to the house and let me
correct.
help grandma and grandpa.
Yep, get
You
out of
know?
sight, stay in the car.
Mhm.
Don't you get out the car, and you help grandma. It's because she wouldn't even tell 911 information about Uriel. It's I don't know. I have to take my son home. I have to take my son home. So
I mean,
I
she
have
didn't know. She said she didn't even know how old she was. Now, it could have been in the heat of the moment. You're panicking, you're frantic. Yeah, you do tend to forget little details. But I don't know. Let's listen to it. You guys listen and she's not on trial for anything. She hasn't done anything wrong. It's just
right.
what my observations, I think.
Well,
Listen.
and Tree makes an interesting comment. Doesn't want her child to see. He's 12, not
Yeah.
6. Agree, but we don't know what kind of 12-year-old. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
probably something we should consider. Is this may be a kid who does not handle emotions? He might. Who knows what kind of mental processing this child has of hers.
Well, and she's probably thinking, "Oh my gosh, not again, Mom. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." And she says in the 911, she's like, "This is bad, this is bad, this is bad."
Well,
And is
I
she
think.
saying it's bad because the baby's deceased, or is it bad because Mom's really done it this
Well,
time?
mom tells somebody, I can't face Kayla. I can't face her. I can't face her. At the
Mm-hmm.
time, this is all, and I don't remember who says that, but somebody comments that that's something that grandma says because it's like, crap, I've done it again. So even at
Yeah.
the time, she knew it was bad.
And so the interrogation or the interview with the grandma that the police did in the beginning, they did play that in court, or at least a portion of it. I don't think it was a full thing, but all we can hear is audio, and the audio is not real good. So I'm not going to play that.
Yeah.
But Yep is going to try to get us that link for that. So maybe if she can find it, we can come back and do another live and watch the grandmother's police interview and kind of get a feel more. I know from what I've heard, she was like what I heard her saying in that interview. She was very distraught. She was just like she didn't want to be on this earth anymore. She didn't. So that's kind of what my takeaway. But it was so hard to understand. So hopefully we can get that and we can listen to it. I could also request it too. So okay, here we go.
You recognize that?
Yes,
What is that?
that's the this that has the 911 call on it.
The recording?
Yes,
Is that a fair and accurate depiction of the call you made that day?
yes,
And Ms. Tucker, I'm done going into the details of what you saw. Did you stay around there or did you leave?
I mean, I was there probably for 5 or 6, I mean, I don't know, a few minutes while on the phone.
Oh, yes.
And then, once I heard the ambulance nearby, I left because I didn't want Aiden to go through that,
You want to get your son out of there.
Right.
Ms. Tucker, I'm sorry I had to ask you the questions. Thank you very much for answering them. I have no further questions.
Thank you. Defense? Well,
Good morning, Ms. Tucker. That particular day, was your mom going to take Aiden, you indicate, I think, out to eat?
Yes.
And was he also supposed to do something else, like, say, find Christmas gifts or look at Christmas gifts for him?
Yes.
Okay. And while you were there, did you observe your mom?
I did. While my dad was doing CPR, she went around to the other side of the barn. And while I was trying to figure out what happened, I walked, around to where she was. And that's where I saw her on her hands and knees and was, just completely, pale and breathing really heavy. And I don't know. It all happened so quickly.
Was she gagging?
Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure she threw up.
And was she breathing heavily?
Yeah.
Did you call that hyperventilating?
Yes.
Okay. Could you see her eyes?
Yeah, they were huge.
Okay. I assume that was a pretty traumatic experience.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Stay.
No further questions, Your Honor?
All right, Mitch, you can be released.
Yes, Your Honor.
Defense? All right. And thank you, you may be released. Stay prior to release.
Before we call the next witness, Your Honor, we'd like, once the witness has left the scene in the courtroom, we'd like to publish stating witness number.
All right, let's do that after she leaves the courtroom. All right, stay, take your time. Thank you.
Where is your emergency? My niece, 7 o'clock. I don't know. I just pulled up, but we need EMS like immediately. Please, Kari. Your niece was left in the car. Is she breathing? I don't know what happened. I have no idea. I can't even fathom this right now. My nephew's. Can you get to her so we can answer some questions? No, I don't know what's going on. I can't. My mom is. I'm, I can't. I literally can't. I have no idea. Talk to your dad if he's with your niece. My dad has her right now. My dad has her. Oh, Lord. How old is your niece? Oh, my God. This is really, really, really bad. Oh, no. Oh, ma'am. Oh, yep. My name is Rebecca. Heather. My parents' name is Tracey Nix. Okay, ma'am, how old is your niece? I don't know. She's only a couple months old. Okay, I need you to be with her because I need to know if she's breathing. I need to know now. It doesn't seem like it. Okay, so it doesn't seem like she's breathing. So, do you know how long she was left in the vehicle? I have no idea. I just pulled up. Please. Okay, I have help on the way. So I'm gonna stay on the phone with you while you're there. Oh Lord. Okay, I have my 12-year-old son. Okay, how old is your niece? Is it gonna be the baby? Months old. Okay, just please, and I'm gonna take you home. I can't be here for this. Okay, I understand. This is Kayla, who's the youngest one. Yes. Okay, I need to talk to somebody because I want to do CPR on her. My dad's doing it right now. Okay, so you're going to CPR in progress? Are you doing CPR? Oh my gosh, she's dead. Okay, how does she look? Her eyes are open, she's not moving or breathing. Eyes are open, not moving or breathing. My son's home. That's correct.
You know, she could also be trying to protect her son because the other child did just pass 11 months prior.
Yeah.
So at that age, he probably definitely had struggled with that. So maybe I can see why she would want to protect him from it. But like I said, I couldn't have left a situation, even if it was a stranger in a situation like that. So
Well,
it's just interesting that she didn't tell him, get up to the house. The calls seem to be like, me, I can't handle this. I can't take this. I can't do this. Meanwhile,
so
your dad's giving CPR to an infant.
But what if, just to play some devil's advocate, because that's what I do. What if she's between the two daughters, she's the closer one, and she understands what grandma has gone through after the first.
That's kind of the feeling I get here, is that she probably is the closer daughter, and there's some beef there between the sisters. Obviously, there's probably been hard feelings with Kayla and her mom, because no matter what, accident or not, that still would be a really difficult thing to wrap your head around, you know?
I would be, so I found it interesting that in her fit of, I can't be here, I can't do this, I have to get my son out of here, I have to take him home. I think if I was in that situation, I would slip and say, oh no, not again. I can't believe this is happening again. That would be a common thing somebody would say, because you go right back to the original trauma, which is still not exactly healed, right? We're talking about a 14-month-old that drowned. I can't imagine that's easy to heal from.
Right.
especially at the hands of your mother as you're watching your niece being resuscitated, or at least attempt to be, because something happened, and you're just, she had to have presumed that mom was involved.
Yeah, for sure.
So
I just find like human behavior so fascinating, and I think that that's really what draws me to true crime. I despise the things that happen and that we cover, but I really find, the way people react and the human mind fascinating. And so I do need to say again, like we always say, you never know how you're going to act until you're in that situation.
and that's why I say I would like to
Yeah.
think, but that's one thing I'm surprised at. She didn't open that door, which
Mhm.
would have changed this case.
Seems like it would have been an easy slip.
Yeah,
For
but
sure.
she held, in which, but I think she kind of did like, oh no, this is really, really, really bad. And as
Mhm.
a 911, or as an innocent listener, you're like, yeah, it's really bad. There's an infant. The infant's
Yeah.
passed. They're gone. But when you find out about everything, you're like, oh, that's why it's really, really, really bad. And
Mhm.
that's why you're in because to me, to your point, Kari, she's in a very different kind of mode of panic. She's not, I'm going to
Mhm.
help. It's this cannot be happening again. This cannot
Yeah.
be happening again. We're not even through the first round. It's not even been a year, and this is going on again. So I think
Mhm.
her 911 call is probably more based on, you got to be kidding me. We can't be
Right.
doing this twice. We can't be.
Yeah.
And it is so, which goes into your point of that 12-year-old has already been through this once. Maybe he was, maybe that was upsetting to him, and she's like, oh my God, we're still in therapy for this kid. We gotta get him out of here. He doesn't have the trauma bandwidth for this.
Mhm.
Yep, Shayna, I have issues with that one too.
And I think that goes back to that interview Kayla said that there had been some family issues
Yeah.
already, and that this made it that much more difficult. So I am very curious about that. All right, let me finish this one. This one's almost.
Kayla, are you on somebody? No. Oh my goodness, this is. Whew, I'm sorry. I see something I can't. Whew. Okay. Whew. Come on, honey. Finish up, please. Let's go. Oh my goodness gracious. Oh Lord. Okay. Okay. I know that you're wanting to leave. Is there any way I can talk to somebody that's there? Is Tracey there? I don't know where she's gone to. I don't know where she is. I don't know. Okay, does your dad know how to do CPR on an infant? Yeah, yes, he does. You're doing it, right? Yes, he's doing it. Oh my goodness. Okay, I know you just got there. Is there any way that somebody can answer how long she's been like this? Mom! I don't know where she's at. How long was she in the car? A while. She was in the car. Took her to work with you. Okay. All right, ma'am. Okay, so she took her to lunch with her, and then whenever she got home, she was just left in the car? Yeah. Yes, ma'am. I know y'all want me to say I have to take my son home. You cannot. I can't do this with him here. So, did your mom call me? Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Is she possibly trying to subconsciously protect her mother as well right now?
Trying to keep her mouth shut.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, trying to be like, oh, yeah. I feel like she is averting the obvious. I feel like most people, and the chat needs to chime in on this. I feel like most people would say, oh my gosh, this can't be happening again. My mother's having a panic attack because she's already had one child pass on her time. I can't do this because my child has been through this once already. Like, you start explaining yourself as to, we have an emergency situation. The dispatcher's like, you can't leave.
Right.
Like,
It
the
seems like
dispatcher's
it
like,
was.
why do you want to leave? This is clearly your niece. You're clearly upset.
Yeah.
You want to explain, but she's doing a very specific job of, oh my, okay, oh my, oh goodness gracious, oh Lord, okay, this is really, really, like, she's saying everything but the obvious of, are you flipping kidding me? Again, Mom?
Mm-hmm.
Again? Like, you just got done telling me the first one was a complete accident and we're doing this. So I feel like her panic attack is more of a, oh shit. Oh my God. I cannot believe you did this again. Like, so I feel like this daughter, Rebecca Tucker, is protecting her mother at this point. But I don't
Maybe
feel like it's malicious.
maybe without even realizing it too, just by.
Oh, I don't think she's I think she's a very sweet, kind-hearted gal from the way she speaks, the way she articulates herself. I think she's very kind-hearted. I think she means well in the world. And I think she believes in the best of her mother. I think she probably wishes the best for her sister, but I don't get the impression they're all that close. I know her sister, the mother of these two fallen children, stated it really hurt her to see her sister have to testify at all. So that tells me there's a relationship between Rebecca and Tracey that is significantly different than that of Tracey and Kayla, who hugged her mother goodbye at the end of court.
Right. I think that they, in the very beginning at the call, didn't she say the parents' names?
Yeah, she did. Yeah, it looks, if you're reading the closed captioning, it does not reflect everything properly. I've listened to this 911 call multiple times.
She said it at the beginning, though.
She does say mom and dad's name, but dad's name is really hard to understand. You hear like
Right.
Nun Nix or Nay Nix or whatever, and it's just weird. But yeah, they caught mom and dad's name early on.
Yeah. Yep. Hold on. Mom?
Your Honor, this case is concluded. Publishing case exhibit 3.
All right. Thank you. State, next witness number 6.
Now, with the state resting, it's time for the defense.
So this next one is the grandfather. So this is Tracey's husband. It's a short clip. He didn't testify for very long at all.
To present a case if they so choose, and they are. They're calling baby Uri's grandfather to the.
Hey, Nix.
And Mr. Nix, you're the father of Kayla Nix?
Yes, sir.
You're the father of Rebecca Tucker?
Yes.
And you're the husband of Mrs. Nix?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. And obviously you remember Uri?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How often would you and or Tracey keep Uri?
Depending on the week, anywhere from 2 to 5 days.
Okay. Can you?
I find that interesting.
I do too. 2 to 5 days a week, but the other interviews I've seen, and please, I'm not like placing blame on Kayla. I'm just saying because it's not Kayla's fault, but I'm just saying in other interviews, she kind of made it sound like, you know, they didn't trust her, they didn't have her very often. This would be like supervised because she knew the people that were going to be at the luncheon. But here we have the grandfather saying it was multiple times a week, which also tells me that grandma was pretty used to having, you know, the grandbaby.
Right.
Like if she rarely ever had her, then I could understand forgetting, like even at my age, you know, like we get into our little rhythm and groove, let me tell you. And anything outside of that, you know, we can forget. So, but for him to say that they actually had her multiple times a week.
Well, and during Kayla's interview or her testimony, actually, she didn't make the comment of, you know, we normally reached out to my mother and we normally did this. It was, I had a hair appointment, was taking some time for myself. I thought, okay, I'll call mom. She's going to be with people that I know and trust and have known all my life. They're going to be right down the block for me. This should be okay, which did not tip the jury off to anything. Like there was some hinting around there in the trust department. But dad is like, we had her 2 to 5 times a week. Like this is a constant. I'm like, Dad, you're not helping mom out. Grandpa, you're not helping grandma out very much right now. That's why
I feel so sorry for this guy too, man. His whole family is just destroyed. I feel really bad for this guy.
Give we'll say a normal routine on how that would occur, the pickup and the delivery.
Most often would be me going to their office to pick up the child. And then I would bring her back to the house And that's where usually Tracey would pick up.
Would pick up from there?
Yes.
Okay. And when you would drive,
So then he's typically the one that would put her in the car seat or at least get her out of the car seat, it sounds like, because he did the picking her up.
I'd like to know if he had a car seat for his vehicle then.
Right.
to pick up Uri, what vehicle would you drive normally?
Normally was my truck.
Normal
pickup truck, yes.
Did you ever drive the red Lexus?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And in the evening, how would she get, was they redelivered to her parents?
Normally was her father, Drew, would normally come by after work.
Okay. And on occasion, did you drive the Lexus?
Yes.
To either pick up or redeliver?
Pick up.
The child? Okay. And when you had the mirror adjusted to the back, were you able to see the car seat from the back seat, driver's side?
No, sir, not for me.
Okay. Now you're a little taller than Tracey.
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell us, would Tracey be able to, from her viewpoint, from what you saw in the Lexus?
Judge, your speculations this thing.
If you're looking out the back window from the rear view mirror, is your view going to be the same as hers if it's properly adjusted?
Yes.
Okay. And did you ever, we'll say, have a situation where you got into the car and it was adjusted for Tracey?
Yes.
And y'all have some issues about that sometimes?
Some minor discussion.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
State, any cross? Briefly, Your Honor.
Mr. Nix, I just have a few questions for you. As far as the vehicle, the Lexus, it has windows, right?
Yes.
You can see through those windows?
Yes.
No further questions.
All right, redirect.
Yes, sir. On the day in question, could you see through those windows?
Yes.
And on the day in question, before Uri was found in the back seat, were you near that vehicle on your lawnmower?
Yes.
And could you look into the vehicle?
Not from where I was seated on the lawnmower.
Okay. And why was that?
Because I was located a small distance from the car at approximately the same height as the driver.
Okay. And you could not see the child?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. You may be excused. Fletcher, may be excused.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Yes, Your Honor. Thank you, Mr. Smith. This is State. Defense Lawyer, second witness.
Yes, sir. Yes, Your Honor.
Ready? Let's
In the meantime, now with the state resting, it's time for the defense to present a case if they so choose, and they are. They're calling. In the meantime, now with the state resting, it's time for the defense. In the meantime, we have some new.
Stop.
Like you've got control of that one, don't you?
Every time I go to click something, it kept moving from me. Yeah. So what do you think about the grandfather? Nothing really eye-popping, just that they had them a few times a week. He generally is the one that picked them up. He couldn't see through the car when he was, outside. I bet he feels just absolutely, oh man.
So
And yeah, you're right, Rock. Like, it is hard to understand without judging. It really is. I mean, we try, but some things are just really hard to understand.
So if he was outside mowing and he could see the car, I want to know why neither side of the legal teams asked, could you see Tracey exit the car? If he could see the car, he could see the car at a driver's height, which was to indicate he couldn't see the car seat, but they didn't ask that question. Did you see Tracey get out the car? Because that would tell me, okay, he's really not part of the formula.
Right.
And I think that's important, but neither side asked that question, and that should have been asked. But at the same time, okay, so you have grandpa's not putting grandma in a very good position. You get this kid 2 to 5 times a week. That means you are used to change.
Right.
Change in the
That's what I
routine.
was saying. Mm-hmm.
So
if it was on a rare occasion, that would be so much easier for me to understand, truly.
it really would, but we're the hot car cases that are out there that end up in court. Those individuals, those parents, they are in routine for the most part. they're in routine. They're not used to being able to drop the kid off. It's their off day to drop the kid off, and they just go by muscle memory. And before you know it, they're at work. And the next thing you know, they're going home, and they go by daycare, and they realize, oh, crap. I don't like those cases any better, but I'm like, I see where you're coming from. At the same time, though, I'm not so mindless and thoughtless, and I am going to put it out there. And I know nobody wants to put it out there, but I will. When I have an infant in my care, I do not forget. My situational awareness is on peak because there is another human being that is relying on me for their literal life force.
And I thought for a second, like, okay, maybe age might play into it. She's 65 years old, but she is a school principal. Come on. And every single day we hear about hot car deaths and little kids drowning in water. Yeah. So the two things happened to this grandmother. And as a school principal, I don't know, is it grade school, middle school? It really shouldn't matter. She is in tune to kids, I would think.
I would think
so.
Unless your forgetfulness is so much so that you are released from your duties. And at that point in time, okay, as a family member, I find out that my mother is released from duties for forgetfulness at the school. Okay, cool. I'll give her the benefit of the doubt as a family. Oh, wait, you lose one of my children on your clock. We are done with the trust. We are going to change up the family trust systems as far as my side of the family is concerned. If another one of my siblings wants to risk it, good for you.
Right.
But we want to work through this because you're forgetful. We'll work through this, but twice. So I find some accountability that can probably be spread across the boards.
Right.
I don't like to
for
say
everybody.
that. But
why were there not child-proof doors, door handles, door locks, things like that? The one you just pulled down, oh my gosh, that's the easiest thing in the world.
I mean, if you testified that, and Kayla, if you're listening, I don't want you to take this wrong. This is why I reached out to you so I can understand. If you are testifying that you found it okay, even though the jury didn't pick up what you're putting down, you found it okay to let your child stay with your mother. You contacted her, you asked her for assistance. She says, I have a lunch. You find out where the lunch is at. You realize the lunch is just a few seconds away from you, where you're going to be at, and it's with individuals you've known for most of your life and you trust. That tells me you're not quite there. You were taking a risk, but and maybe as a parent, she was trying. She was trying to get past the past. Yeah. And she takes that step, and this is what she puts it perfectly. It's complicated as all get out.
Definitely. And Texas Blue Bonnet said this is disturbing on so many levels. And that's why I chose to cover this. And I know that it's not, it's already been solved. She's already had her trial. I really find it kind of, obviously very tragic, but also kind of fascinating at the same time. So I included this video because the guy that's going to speak on here, he did testify at the trial, but his testimony and another defense witness's testimony happened while the jury was not in the courtroom. And while one of them was I don't think it was this guy, I think it was a different one, but while they were testifying, they're doctors, one's a pharmacology, and I think the other was I don't know, both doctors. But while he was testifying is when the jury came in with their verdict. So the jury already came in with a verdict while he's on the stand testifying. So the jury never heard this that you're about to hear.
Reaction for you to the verdict of forgetful grandma Tracey Nix. Nix was acquitted of the crime of aggravated manslaughter in the hot car death of her infant granddaughter, Uriel.
We, the jury, find as follows as to count one of the charge. The defendant, Tracey Howard Nix, is not guilty. We, the jury, find as follows as to count two of the charge. The defendant, Tracey Howard Nix, is guilty of leaving a child in a motor vehicle in excess of 15 minutes, causing great bodily harm.
The jury found Nix guilty of a third-degree felony of leaving the child in the car for more than 15 minutes. The statutory max is typically 5 years for such a felony crime, but it could be possibly 8 in this case, depending upon what the judge finds regards to aggravating factors the state is trying to present. Now, during deliberations, the defense team proffered witnesses that could be called.
Okay, so this is why I included this, because this goes into the medications that she was taking. And catering winch, that's so sad. So dementia was developing over a 10-year period. The signs were more visible at age 60. Interesting. That's sad. I'm so sorry. Dementia is horrible. Tara did a whole live on that on her channel, Shenanigans. And you can put that link in the chat, Tara, or for whoever. But we did a whole segment with a lady that was documenting her mother with it. Was she on Instagram?
Yes, I believe
Yeah.
so.
It was really interesting. It was really sad, but it was also really interesting. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, go take a look at the video that or the live that we did on that.
On appeal, including Dr. David Diamond, an expert on forgotten baby syndrome.
This is a peer-reviewed medical.
So apparently this forgotten baby syndrome is a thing. I mean, like a real thing. So.
Journal in which I described the medical basis of how it is that people can forget children in cars. And this specifically, I want to emphasize, this is for people who are not on medication. I understand that in this case, we have an issue about medication affecting Tracey Nix's memory, and that's certainly valid. But independent of medication, we have hundreds of people who have forgotten children in cars, and that is independent of medication impairing their memory. And this was a part of my publication in Medicine, Science, and the Law.
And guess what, my friends? Dr. David Diamond is joining us live right now. I want to welcome him into the program. Dr. David, thank you so much for your time this morning and for talking with us about this case. Your testimony yesterday got cut off with the verdict announcement, as you know. So I want to just back everything up and start with how.
Isn't that wild that while they were testifying, a verdict comes? I've never heard of anything like that ever.
Why? Why are we testifying when the jury is deliberating? Why?
Yeah,
How
that's
is that
wild.
possible? Is that a Florida thing where you can bring in information for sentencing? Is that what we're doing?
I mean, I watched one where he's literally sitting there giving his testimony, and they pause and they say the jury's come to their decision. So, and Tree said they come up with a thing for everything, and I agree.
Beautifully stated. Beautifully stated.
So, but what he says is interesting, I think. And then it does go into the medications that she was on. And, he said she was on pretty high level of 1 or 2 of them.
The defense team wanted to call you as part of their case presentation at trial, but were unable to. And that's something we haven't really been able to dive into it at Court TV. Could you tell us what happened there? Why did the judge prohibit them from calling you?
Well, first, thank you for inviting me to be on your show. It has surprised me when judges have refused to have experts testify. Not only was I not allowed to testify and speak to the jury, but the experts, the toxicologists, weren't able to address the medications that she was on. So there was no explanation that I was given as to why no one was permitted, no experts were permitted to testify in this case.
That's really baffling, Dr. David, as you noted. We're baffled by it, and we want to know what your opinion is. You, correct me if I'm wrong, but you personally evaluated Tracey Nix, is our understanding, and came to an opinion as to how the situation could have occurred with baby Uri. Would you share that, please?
So not only with Tracey Nix, I've spoken with dozens of parents, grandparents, caretakers who have lost children as a result of being forgotten in cars. Every single case is a tragedy, and it's just horrifying when you think about this. And in Tracey's case, it was so similar to the dozens of other cases. Here's a good person, a person who all her life has cared about people. She had been asked by her daughter to watch her granddaughter, Uri, picked her up from her daughter, took her granddaughter out to lunch, and left lunch. On her way home, and this is the pattern, on her way home, she lost awareness of her granddaughter in the back. And understand, what we've got now are children that are out of view, that are quiet. She was behind the driver. There was nothing of Uri's in the car that she could see. And so as she came home, she had lost awareness that Uri was in the car. And so she exited her car, went about her daily activities. And during that day, Uri died of heat stroke in the car.
It is horrifying, as you said, Dr. David. I want to ask for some clarification on one point. Many of us have been wondering, is Tracey Nix suffering from any kind of cognitive declining that could have contributed to this or been the cause of this?
Well, first, as I emphasized in court, what happened with Tracey Nix, which was to lose awareness to forget Uri in the car. People have called this forgotten baby syndrome, and that's not a medical term. We forget to do things that we plan in the future all the time. Later in the day, you could be planning to call someone. You're planning to stop at the store on the way home, and you forget. That happens to completely normal people. We don't know, actually, on that particular day, was it because of the medication she was taking? So she was on an extremely high dose of Ambien, which is known to impair memory. She was also taking a benzodiazepine, which impairs memory. And the experts testified that she should not have been on such high doses of medication, each of which would be known to impair memory. So the way I testified was she could have forgotten Uri even in the absence of medication. But the medication certainly exacerbated the situation, and potentially there was a synergy between the various different medications she was taking that could have contributed to her memory impairment.
This is fascinating, Dr. David. So I suppose the best way to sum this up, and correct me if I'm wrong, I get that you're saying it's a loss of awareness that she experienced, and that is for sure. And you're saying that it's also possible that her taking those medications, Ambien and the benzodiazepines, could have also exacerbated that lack of awareness and made it even worse. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's correct. But understand something. I've been involved in dozens of cases. I've testified in numerous cases around the country. Most of the time, people are not on medication that affects memory. And so it is a potential factor in this case. But we need to understand hundreds of children have died as a result of being forgotten in hot cars. Probably about 800 children ever since we've had airbags developed in the 1990s, with children being put in the back seat, especially when they're put in and facing the rear. And this is what I've studied. The question is, how does the brain sort of lose awareness? How does the brain process information and yet then lose that awareness that there's a child in the car? So in this particular case, we don't know about the selective contribution of the medication. It could have happened in the absence of the medication. And I also want to clarify, I spoke to Tracey Nix for quite a while, as well as the other experts. There's no evidence that she has any form of dementia, Alzheimer's disease. This is not about brain damage. This is about a normal brain process, which ultimately results in tragedy.
This is really helpful, Dr. Diamond. Doctor, in the course of your evaluation with Tracey Nix, were you made aware of her?
A normal process? Is that what he said?
That's what he said.
Okay.
He's not helping her with that statement.
I thought I heard it wrong. All right.
Being let go from her principal position because.
What's that?
I wish you did, but nope, you didn't. You heard that right.
So I went and looked it up real quick. I put the link in there. But Ambien's a fast-acting. It's a sedative used for sleep, and it's eliminated from the system fairly quickly. It can be detected in the urine for 24 to 48 hours. So I imagine, though, it has that same effect the next day, like a lot of other medications do. I don't know. I don't have no experience, but we're going to look more into it. But she's older as well, so.
Cause of forgetfulness?
I was aware of her past events and.
Aware of her past events.
Actually, she had some concerns about her forgetfulness. And this is the way everyone looks at it. No matter how forgetful a person can be, we put the value of a child's life so high that no one can imagine forgetting a child. It doesn't matter how forgetful you are. She had been concerned about her forgetfulness, which, as it turned out, was clearly caused by the medication. When she got off of her medication, that forgetfulness pretty much resolved. I found her to be entirely lucid, to be articulate, to be completely normal. And she had great memory of her experiences. So yes, I was aware of this, but I don't think it's particularly relevant when you're trying to think about, well, should you blame her because she knew she had some memory problems? What I find it's universal is that people become complacent. The idea that you can forget a child in a car is something that is so foreign to people that they say you can forget someone's name, you can forget where you left your keys, but you just don't forget a child in a car. And for that reason, that's why people don't take any measures to be certain that they do have awareness of the child in the car.
This is fascinating, Dr. David. I could talk to you all day about this. I'm curious for anybody at home wondering, gosh, could that be me? Could I lose awareness in my car with my child? What advice do you have for anyone watching this program who doesn't want to be in this awful situation that Tracey Nix is in?
Well, understand, fortunately, it is an extremely rare circumstance. Most people who don't take any measures will not leave children in the car to die. The statistics actually are quite disconcerting, that about 25% of parents do actually report that during some drive, they do actually lose awareness of their child in the car. It does happen quite often. But fortunately, children are usually saved. Either the child makes a sound, the driver has to get something out of the back seat, or it's just simply not warm enough for the child to die of heat stroke. So we need to be aware that this actually does happen quite often. Now, I helped to get a federal bill passed, which is the Hot Cars Act, and all new cars eventually will have to have child detection technology. And I think that's a great advantage.
Oh, it sure
but
is.
for now, what I urge people to do is that they should give themselves a cue to remind themselves that there's a child in the car. And it's real simple. Put something in the car seat when the child's not there, such as just a little stuffed animal. When you put the child in the car seat.
Sir, we can't remember a child. We're not going to remember a stuffed animal. Okay, I'm not remembering the stuffed animal. I don't know about the rest
that's
of
a
you.
good point. A stuffed animal,
I wouldn't remember that.
stuffed animal is meaningless, but if you put your purse in the car seat, but she didn't have a car seat in her car regularly. It had to be transferred from mom's car or dad's car.
Right.
That's part of the problem. But I'm not buying what he says that people, 40% of people forget their kid in the car. I don't buy that. I can't imagine. I know my parents did, but they thought me or my brother were going to grab her because we sat on either side of her in our Lincoln Continental back in the late 80s, early 90s. And we thought, well, we're kids. Mom and dad are going to get her. Like, nobody communicated jack. But when you are alone in a car by yourself, you get mindless. And you get thought. That's the problem. You get
Start thinking
mindless
about
and
other
thought.
things. She was going to be
Yes.
out of town, taking her grandson out of town later that day. So that might have been on her mind. The Bible thing they did that morning, the conversations at lunch, all these things.
When the car seat being behind the car, catering lunch is bringing that up. I get it. I don't look to the back seat of my car unless,
Right.
I don't know, I came home with groceries because I came home with groceries. And has there been a time that groceries have been forgotten in my car? Yes. But it wasn't, those are, to me, that's so different.
Yeah, that's not a child.
Yeah, I forgot.
But you
you
probably she probably also really had to work hard to be, I would assume, to be able to get her daughter to allow her to watch
Oh, I'm sure it was
child.
well, and the diaper bag was in the back seat, tree. The diaper bag
Yeah,
was
but
in the
she's
back
saying
seat.
maybe put it in the front seat. That might
Oh.
help somebody remember,
You know what's funny is that's where I used to put my card. Everything was in the front seat with me. I put baby in the back seat in the middle in case of a collision on either side of the car. I felt like chances were better for my baby then, and I could also reach my child in the middle seat if I was driving in case they needed a pacifier or something. So I'm long limbed. I'm 6'1". I have long limbs. So I could reach around that car and grab stuff. So that was just the most centralized location for me. But again, when there's a kid in my presence, I'm so hyper vigilant. I mean, people thought I was overbearing with my children when they were babies because I just wouldn't leave them alone. I wanted to know where they were, what they were doing. Now, it was actually because I didn't want anybody else to feel responsible for them. So I would do my job as a parent to stay on top of them, which means I missed all the good fun parenting stuff. Or all the good fun adulting stuff. I was too busy parenting. It kind of made me a little bitchy too because I wanted to adult like everybody else and nobody would switch out with me. But that's
Right.
the fun part of being a parent. And that included the flipping, it doesn't matter. I digress.
So I just ended the original poll that you guys did when you first came in. And 52% said that you do believe she should have been found guilty. 40% said, I'm not familiar enough yet to say, and 7% said no. So now I just did the poll again and see if your answers have changed any.
Take that stuffed animal out and put it in the front in full view. That way, when you see that stuffed animal in the front, that is a cue to you to remind you that your child is in the car. Now, I know many people will respond to that with skepticism, and they'll say, other people forget their children in a car. I could never do that. And that's what makes someone so vulnerable, because they feel that it's only the bad parents, the forgetful, the negligent parents that forget children. And I have seen the suffering that has happened to really wonderful people who just believed it never could have happened to them.
Pause it for me for just a second. I'm reading Rock's comment. I'm torn, of course. Here's the real kicker. And I'm torn too, but I do think she should have been found more guilty of more charges. Does the family trust her to watch a kid again?
Well, I bet Kayla doesn't, but I wonder if the sister does.
Well, that's what I'm curious about is if she's not guilty, she's not going to do any time. I guarantee you, she's not going to do any time at all. But here's the real kicker to it, though. Is she going to be able to watch? Will the family trust her to watch any child at all? If she's driving with the 12-year-old who's now, I think, 14 or whatever. Will she be I'm sure Kayla's done trusting her. I don't know if Rebecca has any other children, but now that society members are aware of this, people out there in her community are aware of this, do they trust her to be around children? It's not like she's going to register.
Her church youth group said, the friends said that she did all the planning and stuff for all that stuff. So yeah.
If the courts are like, okay, we trust you, go ahead. That's what the courts are literally saying. We trust you to a certain degree. We believe you should have probably been watching, doing a better job of not leaving a kid in a car. But ultimately, we trust you to go back into society with kids and do your thing. It's exactly what this court is saying with all this. And I'm like, no, if this was my mother, this was my situation, my family, I'd be like, you know what, Mom? Love you, but 2 of my family members are gone, and you are responsible.
It would just be oh my gosh. And yeah, that's fine. You do what you got to do.
Yeah,
girlfriend.
yep, you're good. And Rock, I agree. A 12-year-old is a lot different to watch, but I'm hoping that's a typical 12-year-old where they can speak. What if they are on the spectrum, if they are handicapped, if they are still traumatized and having PTSD from the first loss, and now we got this loss. There's been a lot of kids out there who experience trauma and they don't speak for years and years and years. We don't know this about this child. But that's why, I'd love to talk to a family member and a jury member. I want to know.
Yeah, I would too. As far as the sister having more than one child, I don't believe so. I did not go look up the sister and go through all that, truly. I don't think so, only because Kayla mentions in an interview about her nephew and how sad it makes her that he has had to go through this. And then, of course, the sister says, her son. So I think she might only have the one. And then Kayla does have a son as well. And I think they just had another baby, possibly.
They do have another, Kayla and her husband have a little girl.
Yeah. All right. This is almost finished.
This is such great advice and insight, and I think the perfect note to end on. You started our conversation, Dr. David, by noting that Tracey Nix is a wonderful person who adored her children, her grandchildren, loved them, beyond measure, and this was just an awfully tragic incident. What good did you get from her? Because, of course, it's easy for all of us to look at her in the defendant's chair and think, my gosh, how could this woman do this? What did you glean from the conversation that made you say that she's a wonderful individual?
Whenever I get involved in a case in which a child dies, I look at the medical records. I look at what people say about the defendant. So I look into their past. I look at what the family says about her. Does she have any record of abuse or negligence? And there have been times when I have refused to testify. I've had cases in which the parent was on illegal drugs. And so you do question the character of people. And I need to question the character of someone before I would testify on their behalf. In this case, there just were so many people that thought the world of Tracey Nix. The that she cared so much about people in general. And in my talking with her, I saw what a good person she is. And so that helped to motivate me to want to come to her defense and to explain how the brain processes information at different levels, at a conscious level and a subconscious level. And so we haven't talked about it much, but in these cases, when someone is doing something out of habit, and understand she had driven home hundreds of times without the child. And that's the habit that we get into. We don't realize that in order to remember the child, we have to break that habit and have that awareness that on today's drive, there's a child in the back seat. And that's where we suffer. When we go through this habit memory that doesn't include the child, that's when we're vulnerable to losing awareness of the child. And more than half of the time when these children die, it's actually at their home or the home of the caretaker.
It's just horrific. You've shared such valuable insight with us today. Dr. David Diamond, thank you for your time and your expertise. Hope to talk with you again sometime.
Thank you for inviting me.
Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today I will offer an update.
Oh boy. Kari, you're on mute.
Because of course I am.
I mean, if I did it, you have to. So thank you.
So I'm not going to play Dr. Grande, but at the end, at the beginning, he kind of goes through the case, and then at the end, he gives his psychological opinion, and he basically says the forgotten baby syndrome or whatever it is as well. So I'm just going to put his link in here, and you guys can check that out on your own time. So that's it for the videos. I want to show you Kayla's Facebook post real quick. All right, so October 31st, she put, let me make this big, that might help you guys here. Okay, so on October 31st, she said, tomorrow marks 2 years that my beautiful baby girl, Uriel, was stolen from me at the hands of my own blood. I think that those words right there speak volumes on how Kayla feels now. The court process has been nothing shy of total trash, including today, where I get to go see the person responsible for her death. There's always something to turn up the intensity of the pain and despair on the worst days, just twisting the knife. And then she shared these adorable pictures. And then the next one, this is Uriel here, it was November 1st. She says, Uriel Jane Shock, you are not just enough. You are everything. You are everything we prayed for. And the light you brought us was the brightest and most beautiful experience. You were stolen from me and your daddy. We will never get over you. While I might not be enough for my mother, she's made that clear. To put her baby before herself, to leave what's left of my family in peace. You, Uriel, you are enough, and I'll never stop giving all I have to bring you justice and help your brother find peace. My baby girl, we will be together again, I promise. So yeah, while I might not be enough for my mother, she's made that clear. And I don't know what Kayla's speaking of here. It could be the fact she really wanted her mother to take accountability for this, and she feels like she hasn't. So she didn't want her mom to put them through all this with the trial, things like that. And then January 10th, she said, this whole thing is crushingly surreal. I just missed my baby so much. Precious baby.
Well, not just one baby. Surely she could not have gotten over the passing of the first one.
And then I think this was the last one. And I think I just wanted to read this to you guys so that, you know, we're not just sharing one side. We haven't spoke with Kayla, so all I really have is what she has said in interviews and then, you know, what she's posted here. But January 17th, she says, hi world, to all of those who know me and care for my Drew's life. Thank you for your kind words, your prayers, your willingness to defend and support us. To those who have thoughts and feelings on us, or me specifically, had the full story, which included Ezra's death, been included in the court proceedings, it would have been clear that the details about that case were withheld from me and my husband, and that would have led to different choices. We received those details after Uriel's death. I will not defend anything to any of you. There's nothing anyone can say that could ever hurt as much as my reality. Speak hate, death, judgment, condemnation, and venom, all you want. My God will be shielding us. Our stability comes from God alone. Friends, don't feel you have to fight for me. I have heard it all, and I expect the hate, and I will live just fine, you all. First of all, it makes me very sad that anybody is, giving her hate, death threats, things like that. It's uncalled for.
Yeah,
It's
it is.
sad. But I think she makes her thoughts very well known.
Yeah, agreed. No. Tough case.
Yeah.
Stand by
So
that, though.
that's all I have. I don't know. Do you guys want to call in? I can do that. I can put it up here for a few minutes, and if nobody does, then that's cool too. So
Then that's cool too.
that's cool too.
Oh my goodness. It is.
There we go.
It is something else.
Yeah, broken family. I mean, yeah, it's super sad. And, I think she made it really clear that they did not know everything about her son's death until after Uriel had passed as well.
Well, they said that there was some distance between them, so to speak, so to describe. And until they were told it was an accident, they were not trusting of her mother at all.
Right.
So it sounds like there were some issues, some family dynamics that would be interesting to see come out. And I'll continue to try to reach out to her to see if she will come talk about that, as long as it doesn't upset the case regarding Ezra.
Right. Yeah, so I don't know where the family goes from here.
Yeah.
It's really sad. Yeah, I'm with Texas Blue Bond. There's no way to ever truly heal from this. I just don't think for Kayla to be able to heal from the death of two young children so close apart is probably nearly impossible. I'm sad to say. I mean, it's just going to be hard. It's going to be a really long road. And if the family's tore apart now, then I hope that Kayla has a good support system, because usually we lean on our families in times like this. And I don't know, what is her relationship like with her father?
I don't know. She probably, that's so complex.
It
So
is.
complex. Oh, gross. It's a good one to talk about, though, because this is one of those situations you just do not comprehend can happen at all.
Yeah, and Mountain Girl said, I have a problem with the daughter letting her mother watch her baby after what had previously happened. And I think that you're not in the minority. I think there's a lot of people that feel that way. But there's no reason to go show her hate. I know that's nobody from people we know that would be doing that, but
Right.
But there's just cruel, evil people out there, and this is it's our opinion, and we don't know all the dynamics. We don't know all that. So much was left out of the trial,
Yes.
which I find that interesting. Like the mother, Kayla's testimony was so short and brief.
Yep.
But of course, they couldn't bring up the past stuff. But I'm surprised that their past relationship, or if grandma was let go from her position at school, was that brought up? I don't think so. Was it? Because I think I read that somewhere.
They were. I don't know that much of anything was brought up that would yield the jury to decide one way or another. And Maxine, I wonder what she found out about Ezra's death after Uriel died. What happened is, per her words, as she was being interviewed after the trial, they did not know that the DA wanted to bring charges up against Tracey for Ezra's death originally. So there was some, apparently something there that was worthwhile to explore as charges, but it sounds like it would not have gone through. There would have been an issue, which I want more details on that. Given the report we have from the police department, why did the DA think it was worthwhile to go after that situation, but then decided not to? And now you got to wonder, the DA's like, okay, for reals, we're gonna put a stop to this. It's like the Black Widow of children at this point. Even though she's not seemingly intentional, she's just irresponsible as all get out, which is weird because she's been in education,
Yeah.
children for the longest time. So
Real
go ahead.
Real
You're good.
quick, real quick, I want to play this. This will be the last thing. This is Kayla speaking after the verdict, and I included, I think, just parts of it in my original video. So we can watch this real quick. It's only 4.5 minutes or so, and then I think we'll wrap it up. It helps to share the screen.
It could, yes. I was like, why can't I see the share screen thingy?
Okay.
I was relieved to hear that there was going to be accountability and ownership and a conclusion to this part of this story. One of the things that we have struggled with through this whole case has been the exclusion of my other story, which is my son that drowned in her care. And so for us, this is a win for Uri. But I have a son named Ezra, and he has not been spoken of. And he died in her care. And I don't have any accountability or any answers for that. And I continue to look for those answers to what happened in that case and why that case was not worthy of prosecution at that time. So we're going to be going back in with the state and having a few more conversations to see. But in this moment, we are relieved. The daughter and me had a very hard time with her being taken, and I ended up stepping aside for that moment. And it isn't something that I would ever call a win for me. It is a win for justice for my daughter. And we are grateful to the jurors that spent their time, to all the experts, to all the police and EMTs and every person that played a hand in this trial. We are truly grateful for your consideration and your time and the energy you guys have spent, as well as you guys from the media. I'm truly grateful for giving my story a voice and giving our kids a chance for the world to see that they were incredibly wanted and loved and valued to us. I was deeply saddened when my sister had to testify. This trial process has been complicated, but it broke my heart to see her and to have it brought back to memory that there was personal events in their life that day that she had damaged in her world as well. And I adore my son or my nephew, Aiden, and I hate so deeply that he's traumatized by this, including the court process, including all of this, because he's a teenager. And I think that I struggled the most with her testimony, and also just listening to the recording of my mom, I think, go on a long time about where she was going, what was she going to do, and never hearing, oh my God, Uri, oh my God, my granddaughter, where's my granddaughter, what happened to her?
It was her keeping the information from us instead of telling us. That was sad.
And we are happy ultimately with what the state provided for us in terms of this case with Ezra, or with Uri. And I continue to look for a way to address my son Ezra's issue, because it's something I feel worthy of attention.
For being not guilty, it does sting. I'm thankful though that we did get something. I didn't want to walk out of there and see her walk away like she's been for the past 2 years and just being out and about. I was glad to see that the jury did see our side of it, even though they didn't push for the maximum sentence. It was still, like I said, a form of justice.
Well, and as her daughter, I've struggled the whole time with understanding why there couldn't just be that ownership and what did happen. Like, why did we do this? The destruction that has come from this process is pretty unfathomable as well. You know, my kids are dead, but I've lost a lot more than that.
My son's lost a brother. My son's lost a sister.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? We look at it from that perspective, and it's,
we advocate for our children.
Talking with the assistant city attorney, was there any indication on what she was found guilty on and how much time she would potentially be looking at for a sentence?
He was saying the maximum for the conviction that she had was 5 years. But he was very unsure whether or not they were going to arrest her there.
Go into further details and all of the. It kind of played out in front of us.
But the thing
Didn't have much time to take that in.
The judge knew of my son's story. You know what I mean? The judge was very familiar with it, and I think that had to play in it. Even though the jury didn't know, the judge was very familiar with it. And so
her defense was prepared to shut down a case containing Ezra, which is why they had so many hearings, and ultimately he was excluded from this trial.
We got our son Asher, and we just had a newborn. She is fixing to be 5 months old now, and so we focus on those, and we focus on building. We are always going to be thinking of our children, but I can't neglect my son that I have, and I'm not going to hurt them. It's a day at a time. in a sense.
And when it comes to my family, I mean, that is complicated. In this process, due to certain circumstances, I was already pretty well distanced from them. There are some family members I haven't spoken to in years, and that breaks my heart, and I would want nothing more for that to be different. But the damage has been felt in that way greatly, and I don't know how we recover. I want that. I want us to have a family. But right now it seems very complicated.
Very complicated indeed.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So if we can get a hold of that police interview, we'll definitely show it. Other than that, that's it. I just think it was a really interesting case. This happens all the time. So I did want to bring some awareness to it as well. I think the last thing I was going to say, was there something else? I don't think so. The next video that I'm going to make, and probably the next live that Tara and I will do, well, I don't know about live, but the next video, have you guys heard of Rebecca Auburn? Rebecca Auburn in Ohio. She is getting ready to go to trial soon. And let's see, this is the first part that I have written, just so you can get an idea of what's to come. Rebecca Auburn was once seen as an ordinary woman living in Ohio. By all accounts, she blended into society until her arrest revealed a dark and calculated side. Prosecutors alleged that Rebecca posed as a sex worker and used this cover to lure unsuspecting men into her web of deception. So at least 4 victims have been identified, and they believe there are more. So we're talking like serial killer. Rebecca is accused of using drugs as a weapon to carry out her crimes. So she would fentanyl. She would give them fentanyl and kill them. And then once she did that, then she would rob them. So there's already 4 and possibly more out there. And then so her trial will be starting real soon. So I want to do that as well. All right. So, yep, says she is going to upload what she has for us in the next day or so. The tapes I have mom, dad, and grandma in them at points. Awesome. Thank you so much. Yep.
Yes,
Appreciate
thank
that.
you.
And Ruby Tuesday said, I hope that Kayla and her husband have a strong team of supporters
Yes,
to help them along the
absolutely.
way. I do as well. I truly do. And again, thank you, AMT, for your super chat. Yep, and Just Irish for being members, and Just Irish and Shenanigans Tara for donating memberships. I appreciate that. If you haven't liked the video already, please go do that real quick. And then I will have the other video ready in the next probably 2 days. And you never know what we're going to go live with next week. Who knows? Who knows?
Say.
But again, thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you for having an interest in this case and just following along with us. I appreciate it. And yeah, thank you to the mods too. Thank you, Tara, and
Thank
everybody in the chat. I appreciate you guys so much. So go have a good rest of your evening. I'm going to bed. It's way
Yes.
past my bedtime. It's like 2 hours past it.
No joke.
No, it really is.
Yeah, I know. I know. Absolutely. All right,
All
you guys
right.
have a good night.
Yes. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.